I mean, if you
Yeah.
want me to, do you want me to pop out, figure it out, and then pop back in so you can start?
I mean,
I mean, you
we
can just
have.
mute yourself while you figure it out.
Yeah. Just mute yourself and um, yeah. But yeah, it sounds like actually, I'm not exactly sure what your issue is right now. I have to take my time to look
You
into it.
can try Microsoft Edge, the free internet browser
Oh god.
installed on every Windows computer.
I agree with Wiggle. Does your like regular
So the bad
camera
takes
work?
start already.
Yeah, all right.
Flux. The
Yeah,
bad
yeah.
Yeah.
takes
Why?
start
I
already.
hate Microsoft Edge, but
I'm
it's
not
great
mad at
for
Edge.
troubleshooting.
I have no idea what the beef with Edge is.
Oh, the Edge. I just don't like. I don't know. I don't like anything that has
You got a problem with
Microsoft on the
Bing?
name. Yeah, I'm like, first of all, like Bing trash, and I just don't like anything. I don't trust Microsoft like that. But like I have to like Microsoft. I feel like it's like something I'm tethered to that makes me pay for things more and like makes me regret my decisions. But I have to have them. Like I want to buy. I wanted to get Office the other day, like a month ago, and not really the other day. It was like a month ago. And then now it's like, all right, if you want to get Office, you have to get a 365 subscription, and then you have to pay for like a yearly subscription. It's like, what happened to the old days when you can just like buy individually? Then I find out you could, but you just get like a version of it for that year, and they'll make another version the next year. So you get FOMO. And it's
I
like they
do get
found a way
Open
to,
Office.
dude, it's like they found a way to make you feel insecure about buying Microsoft products so that you buy more Microsoft products. It's just like, leave me
Welcome to
alone.
the glorious future.
I
Welcome
have
to
Office for my
capitalism.
job, but I like on my computer, even though it's like it's already paid for. I just refuse to get comfortable with it. So like I just use Open Office because I feel like it offers everything that I want to offer. I want from
Nah,
there.
I'm a really bad consumer. So like if they just change the icon of
It's too
like
much for you.
2023, like it's gonna make me feel insecure. It's gonna be like I want the new icon when I open up the fucking like the application. Like I need that.
They get you every time. You're a great consumer. You're
Yeah,
the
all
perfect consumer.
right.
You're
Even
who they
then,
want to market
even
to.
then, Twitch can't get me to pay for Turbo. Like, cause that shit's trash. Like that shit's just trash, bro.
um, but I liked that conversation you were having on Marvel. I thought that was pretty interesting. One I'm putting out there. I love Moon Knight. Moon Knight's actually a super interesting comic book character, right? It's an inversion of Batman, and a really fun one, I think. So I hope that one goes well. Uh, and it's interesting what you're saying about like the links between the movies. So like I, as an actual comic book fan, have been used to like an American comic book fan. This is not a thing that you have to worry about on Japanese comics, but having sprawling stories across multiple titles, right? And like there'll be like a mainline story, like a mainline event, but then like if you want the full story, well then you got to go here, here, and here and here, right? To get every single detail, like it takes like a bit, but like I'm fine with that. Like I'm fine like with like going for lore. So like people who go to movies are like learning this now, right? Like, and they're like, "Oh, this is crazy, right? This is a weird way of doing storytelling." But like, comics have always been doing this. Like, they've been
Yeah.
doing this for a while. This is like easy way to up your revenue.
Hmm.
Is to scatter the story, and again, giving you a mainline story that you can follow that and ignore everything else if you want, right? It's you as a consumer and as a lore hunter, who demands that I need to know every single detail, get those references that Bam was talking about, right? So like I feel like you if it's a problem, then you don't have anyone to blame for yourself, but yourself. But uh, as well, like they are doing it on purpose.
I don't. That's actually the biggest issue why I can't get into American comics is because there's like I'm fine doing it with movies, but I don't like that there's like when you say like, oh, do you like Superman? And then they say like, which Superman? What timeline? Like I'm like, bro, it's
Oh.
not just Superman. Like I just want to read Superman, and when I get to the end, I know everything I need to know. That's what manga does well. Manga does like, okay, you read this story from beginning to end. Like there'll be plenty of lore and stuff, but it's all in this one condensed title. Like I don't like that.
We can't no, you can't say that as a One Piece fan though. You can't say that as a One Piece fan. So this is something that is Oda Sensei. And don't worry, everyone, we're gonna get to the actual topic. I'm waiting for the
I
last
hate
person to
you.
join.
I hate you. You make us
Doobie,
all look bad.
Doobie, are you gonna? Oh yeah, I guess Doobie's he's gonna be here in a second. But like for Oda Sensei, the author of One Piece, he doesn't put all the lore in the manga.
That's
It's not
true.
all
That is
there,
true.
right?
There's data books and like a
There's
number of other.
the data books, that's like a common thing, right? So that's like not just him. But it's the his author notes, right? Like the SBSs, right? There,
That's yes.
if you don't know what I'm talking about, when they publish a volume, right? So it's a collection of chapters. When they publish that in there, the author Oda answers questions from viewers, right? And he'll put like big lore pieces in those questions. But if you haven't seen those, then you're missing a whole bunch, right? And there are sometimes things that he says, right? Like word, like things he's uttered, and that has effects on the source. Like if you want everything, then it's more than just the manga.
I think you reached when you said big. Like 85% of the FBSs is like what so and so's favorite food.
Yeah.
No, that's true. No, it's true. Most that's true. But some of it is huge, right? We've learned. I could go into a whole thing on this.
But a lot of
we've
that's
learned.
built off of trust too. Is that like you
Mm.
trust him? Like if it's like some other mangaka, you're just not gonna really like. You're gonna be like, okay, they say this, but it may just not. They might just change their mind. Might change their mind in a year or two. But it's like a lot of the what makes those SPSs great is that if it comes to fruition, or it's like it holds a standard. It's like this guy when he's crafting a story, like he's telling you something that he's planning on implementing, or that's exactly why he did it, and he doesn't just change his mind easily.
Mhm. I guess like the last reference, I guess bringing it back more to mainstream. Like I loved the new Spider-Man movie, and at this point, I don't feel like what I'm saying is spoiler, so I'm saying it anyways. I like
That's
seeing,
foul. That's foul. But
yeah,
I
yeah, but I'm saying like I love the movie, but seeing Tobey Maguire, it was cool, but he didn't do anything fantastic in the movie. He wasn't like a great acting. It wasn't like, oh my god, this is Toby at his best. But we still loved it because of the like it just like said the reference of like oh the nostalgia like oh I know what this means, I know what he's saying.
Um,
I don't think he's that amazing of
my
like an
God.
actor. I don't think he's a
Be
bad actor.
ashamed of
I
yourself
don't think he's
talking
that
about weeb shit
amazing.
on this channel. The fuck is wrong with you?
Because the frog.
Disgusting.
Doobie coming in with hot with the takes tonight.
Oh my god,
You
started showing
too.
close.
It doesn't. It freaks me out less when Doobie does it, but a lot more when Stardust does it.
Here it's Texas. You just hate women.
Oh, it's true, right? I
Why
can't
you
deny
stole her
that.
victory last night, Prime?
I didn't
Oh,
steal
she was
anything.
robbed.
I voted for her. I voted.
Robbed.
I
You're
wanted Stardust
complicit in the
to
system.
shine.
You're
Okay.
complicit in the system.
I'm complicit. Yes, all judges are bad, are bastards. Yeah, that's right. All right, fair enough. Okay, so I guess we'll get started. Thank you. I guess we'll get started. So everyone,
You'd be better
uh,
sleep with one fucking eye open, okay? I'm just saying.
we'll do. Okay, so we are doing the Reverie Roundtable right now, which we have Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern. If you're watching this on YouTube, consider coming by the channel sometime, joining us here. But also hitting the like button, the comment thing. Maybe not the like button. We might not deserve it after this. And subscribing is not always. Oh my god, I don't like this at all. Hitting that subscribe button, and consider becoming a YouTube member. Hitting that join button, supporting us that way, means a ton. Okay, so I'm going to introduce all these lovely guests, right? And we'll go from there. We'll start, well, not with someone lovely, but a guest. Hey, Bam. Thank you for being here.
Always choosing violence. Like we didn't even started yet. See, um, hey everybody, name's Bam. I will have the most correct takes today, as I always do. Never been wrong. If you're against me, I don't know. Push P. That's it.
I still don't quite like. I saw the video, but why is that popular? I don't. Did it come from that video that the SpongeBob
No, it didn't come for that. We was pushing P before that.
I have
We
no
came
idea.
out.
What is this? Why
I-
don't people tell me? I don't know.
You weren't, you don't understand because you wasn't born in the P. Like
What?
it's,
Is?
it's a lifestyle.
Don't get it. All right. Moving on. All right. I'll ask my white friends. Wick.
Don't ask me. I have no idea what's going on. But yeah, name's Wick. I run the Death of Certainty channel, which you can find me at twitch.tv/Death of Certainty. I'm trying something new tonight. I've come on these things before, but I haven't streamed while I've been on here, so I'm trying to stream tonight. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah, so I'm here to just tell everyone while they're wrong, unless they agree with me, in which case they're based and right. So here I am.
Hey, thank you. Next we got Ashley. Ashley, thanks for being here. Thanks for being a part of this. Ashley, yeah, thanks for jumping on. I was happy when you said yes, right? Yeah, you're always a fun individual. So Ashley, tell us what about yourself.
Hi, I go around killing people in a video game called Black Desert on my channel and talk about trans issues. That's
Cool.
really it.
Succinct, all right? Gets to the point, all right? Unlike some other people here. We'll go to Stardust. Stardust is here with us again. She was here yesterday in a great sport, right? Who doesn't hold grudges. Is here with us. Stardust. How are you? That's amazing. Wow. Like, that's really deep. Did that happen? Oh, is she okay? What? Really? Oh my God, Stardust. Ah, and how much blood was there? Right? Did you have to cut them up
Sorry, I
in the
didn't
tub?
even realize. Sorry, I actually don't. Wait, so here's the thing. I didn't realize I was muted. I actually don't hold grudges. I don't know why you're so scared of me, Prime. Makes no
I'm not
sense.
scared. I'm not scared of you.
You act like you're scared of me every time you interact with me. It's so strange. You act like you're terrified. Like I'm like I don't know, like I'm like this terrifying person. Hi, I'm Star. Or Stardust on Twitch. You can find me on Stardust on Twitch. I do debates sometimes. I'm about to drop some very nuclear takes. I'm hoping that they'll be nuclear tonight. And sometimes I play video games and yell at people. That's about it. So yeah.
You don't move your mouth much when you speak. I didn't know. Like when you were muted, I didn't know you were talking.
Wow.
Oh, you know what? Maybe
I'm a
that's
Barbie
why
girl
Prime
in the
is
Barbie
like
world.
terrified. I don't know why he always acts like he's terrified of me. It's so strange.
So
I don't
sexy.
hold grudges, Prime. Why do you think I would hold the grudge on you? Jeez.
Would you like women to move their mouths more when they speak, fam? Huh?
It was just an
That's your
observation. She
liking?
can move her mouth however she chooses.
Like, Jesus Christ, man.
No wonder women don't come on this channel very often. All right, anyway, let's move on. I'm not afraid. Last username, right? Person fills me with joy. Last username. He's also wondering why did I accept.
I don't know how I do that.
Why does Prime look so scared of last username?
I
too?
know.
Jeez.
He's like crying
I'm
almost.
literally laughing. How am I afraid?
It's nervous laughing.
Yeah.
though.
It is.
you
It's
have
laughter,
people-
like as you're
Kamala
being led to the
Harris laugh.
gallows, kind of laughter.
What?
I'm
No,
glad I'm not the
Harris
only one who
laugh.
scares him.
This is
Only
mirth.
Prime and last username know what happened, and Prime knows he was in the wrong, right?
What? Look, I'm filled with mirth here, right? I honestly like last username. I'm happy that they're here. Last username, right?
It's
The
okay, man. I
bringer
don't
of
bite.
joy. How are you, buddy?
I'm great, Prime. I am last username. Anarchist, Canadian, Canadian, if you will. Something like that. I'm trapped in Canada, so please invade as soon as possible. And good to be here, as usual.
Okay, absolutely.
You're on a delay.
We will. Next, we'll go to a person who would actually like to make that dream come true. We'll go to Dark Lord and Saber Doobie. Doobie, right? Please tell last username what America has to offer when our troops come to bring the freedom. Okay, well, this has gone well. This
I'm
joke
here.
is.
Hello.
Go
Can you hear
ahead.
me? Hello, hello,
Yeah.
hello.
Uh-huh.
Lots of freedom, I hope. But I do need to say something. It's extremely important. I'm gonna ask for like a minute of your time, okay? So a couple months ago, I was involved in a huge panel stream with Prime, Stardust, Mr. Girl, and like a bunch of other streamers, right? At the end of the stream, I called out one of the stream hosts, Queen Alexa, and accused her of being involved in grooming a vulnerable underage person. Because those are like screenshots, and these were the allegations that were floating around at the time. So after this, I took control of the Discord server, and that the stream was being held on, and I deleted it midstream, um, which was a pretty cool moment, if I had to say so myself. However, at the time, like my actions were like motivated by what I thought was like righteous anger, directed at somebody who had done damage to a vulnerable young person, who was just like looking for a friend. Um, and this led to me, I think, being like totally like set into that position, right? Because in addition to what I'd heard from other people, I'd actually spoken to a very close friend of mine, someone I've known for 4 years or so, 4 or 5 years, who had like firsthand knowledge of this stuff allegedly happening. So I was totally set into it. It led to like fucking 8 hours of arguing with Stardust and Bo, who was in Bo Blacks and a ton of other people, right? Who were trying to crack the record and trying to clear
That wasn't
Alexa's
very
name.
nice. So yeah, I'm sorry.
It was a massive shit show. Um, and recently, because I didn't just like leave it, right? So I've been checking on this and trying to find out more over the last couple months. And recently, I've learned that it actually wasn't true at all. That Alexa actually did nothing wrong. Um, and I participated in slandering this person to tons of people on stream, and then deleted their Discord server for something that they didn't even fucking do. Right? So I've already spoken to Alexa about this privately and apologized, but just so everybody knows, I fucked up and it wasn't true. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to spam Alexa's new Discord server in the chat. If you guys could join that, that'd be awesome. I've already given her a shout out on my server, but if you guys show Alexa some support, that'd be useful. Oh, and I'm Doobie, by the way.
Okay. Well, fair enough. Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean,
Stupid.
we're here for people who are trying to get to the truth of the matter. And best, I'm not familiar enough with the situation to have an opinion. But I trust that Doobie has done his due diligence, and I don't want to slander people. So great.
Yeah,
Um,
Queen Alexa's nice too. She's a nice person. So
half baked takes. Awkward transition.
Yeah, no
Introduce
worries.
yourself.
I'll make it really quick. I'll make it quick, Prime Case. I'm Half Baked Takes. I don't do a lot of streaming, but you can find me on Twitch and on YouTube. Let's get into it.
Okay. And last, and I'm not sure if least. I haven't made a decision. We have Wiggle, same Wiggle up there. Wiggle, buddy, thanks for being around.
Yeah, so like 9 months ago, I was involved in. Nah, fuck with you, fuck with you guys. But like, nah, I'm glad to be here. It's always dope to be included in the Reverie. I remember when I looked at these questions and I was never gonna be a panelist. And then now it's like it's enjoyable to see that I'm on the panels. It means that the standards have lowered, and I'm happy, and I'm very happy about that. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you guys this in advance. Um, yeah, I'm the main course. Like at the end of all of this, when you go to sleep at night, it's gonna be like those movies that you can't stop thinking about. You're gonna like, wake up in the middle of the night to take a shit or something, and you're gonna be like, "Holy shit, I'm still thinking about what Wiggle said," and that's what you're gonna be left with. For everybody else, it'll be like a class. It'll be like a math class. It all makes sense, and then on the test, you'll forget what the teacher said. For me, I'm gonna be all you can think about all night for the whole week. I'm gonna be like this guy. It's not even him. It's just the truth that comes out of his mouth. I can't rectify it. It's like I want to say that it's incorrect, but honestly, I should just prepare to deal with it because like it's you can't avoid truth, and that's all Wiggle does. Where we wig one, we wig all. Thank you, thank you.
So the only thing I got out of that is that when I'm taking a dump, when I'm trying to pinch off a massive load, right? I'll be thinking of Wiggle. No, that's right. That's the face that comes to mind. Thank you so much.
The Taco Bell of debates, I guess.
The Taco Bell debates.
You heard it here first. When Prime's got a massive load, he's thinking of Wiggle. He's thinking of Wiggle.
Well, now that I've scared off my audience members, for whoever's left, let's get started. Topic 1. As is often the case, we tell women that they should be constantly aware of their surroundings. We give advice as don't walk at home at night, or don't go over to a man's house. The onus is on the woman to protect herself from being a victim rather than men to stop being victimizers. Do we do a disservice to women by telling them this advice? Is it victim blaming? Does it encourage others to criticize women that fail to follow these guidelines? And shout out to Stardust. Stardust actually helped me come up with both these topics, so shout out to Stardust for the assistance last night. So actually, why don't we start with Stardust, and then we'll work our way around everyone else. Stardust.
Sure. Are you sure you want to start with me? Because I'm about to go nuclear.
Do you want me to wait?
I think I should go last, maybe, because I feel like I'm.
Wait, I'm gonna go nuclear too. Anybody not going nuclear?
I'm conventional.
This is why I said there
feel.
shouldn't be a like. This is what happens, right?
Look.
You wanted a no-fly zone, and this is what happens. Like I warned about this. I warned you about this.
I always think my takes are going to be very ice cold and conventional, but then people take it to the next level. So I don't know. Maybe.
Okay. All right. Well, a nuclear proliferation is happening.
I'll go first.
Channel.
I'll go first if this is what it takes.
I might also have a nuclear take. I'm gonna be honest.
Oh my god.
Let me go then. I'm curious. Let me go
Yeah,
first.
like
Mine's not
as a leader, I'll just go first.
Okay.
I understand.
All right, fine. Wiggle, I love you.
I'll go
ahead.
second. How about that? I'll go second.
Thank you.
I'll go
Yeah.
third. Are we calling places now?
Oh my
I
god.
only
not gonna
thank
keep
up
up
to
with
third place. So like I'll thank Wick and Stardust, nobody else. Thank you for going second, and thank you for going third. The rest of you, you're cowards. You're cowards. Anyway,
Wiggle.
yeah, I'm gonna say that like I mean it's already assumed. It's assumed in the vast majority of scenarios that men are victimizers and women are victims. Like only in specific situations with celebrities and such, they'll be like, all right, the man is a victim. You know, he's a millionaire. He has a lot of money. There's reason for this. But in the vast majority of situations, it's just it's thought to be like the man or the male presenting individual is like is a victimizer, and the female presenting individual is a victim. Beyond that, I would say that this is something that everybody has to deal with. Like everybody deals with it. It's like men also hear this all the time. It's just it's less satisfactory, but men hear this all the time. If you're growing up as a man in America, you're also told to like watch out for other men. You're also told to watch around certain men. You're always told that men are more violent. You get that explanation for why there's so many men in prison. You get that explanation for like men are more violent individuals. You don't want to step up to certain men. They might stab you. They might take actions into their own hands. Men are just violent. They're naturally more violent. You're always hearing this no matter what. It's just that this kind of like these descriptions affect women or female presenting individuals more than they affect men. Me hearing that is like, okay, maybe I could do something about it. But like, okay, men are more violent, but maybe I could do something about it because I'm a man. Whereas like if you're a female presenting individual and you might feel like, well, all right, this might affect me more because perhaps I'm also somebody that I can't. Maybe physically for whatever reason, I can't equate to that man. Maybe I need a firearm or I need something else to protect me. I need something to equalize. I need a great equalizer when I go against like a threatening male figure. Whereas for me, maybe my hands are enough. Maybe I can just wake up in the morning and that's just enough to maybe fend off against another man or something. I wanted to present that at first. And I think like the idea that this is like the advice that don't walk home at night or like don't go over to a man's house, is this a disservice to tell women this? I think this is just like, this is earnest advice. It's like we give advice to a society and then we give advice to individuals. So this is advice that you give to like an individual. You tell your sister, your mother, your daughter, you tell all the women in your life. You will tell this stuff because you care about them. You want them to thrive, flourish, and survive. And even if it's against their own country, even if it's against their state, even if it's against other people, because you have this family first mindset. So like you would give them this advice even if it was negative for everybody in the country to hear this advice, because you put your family over everybody else's families. So I will tell like somebody in my family, I'd say, hey, just do this, even if it hurts everybody else's family, if I know it puts them in the best position possible. And this is how like we train people to think in America. And this is why we have like so many successful people in America. Sorry, this is
like,
you still go first. I'm going first. I was like, this is why we have so many successful people in America that also hurt other people and justify it all the time. There.
Okay. Literally, the only thing I got out of that is that Wiggle thinks that his hands are registered lethal weapons. All right, so let's move on.
Against you, and against you, at any time, at any time.
Stardust. All right, second, I guess. Sure.
Yep. So I think that we've been pushing the too much onus away from women in these situations. Dating and relationship interactions are complicated. Even if I think that women should be able to walk around naked in the middle of the street and not be assaulted, I know that's not the world that we live in. In the world that we live in, anyone walking around outside completely naked is going to be perceived as offering an invitation to everybody around them, right? So, by not offering younger women practical advice on how their actions will be perceived by men and potential partners, we're setting women up for failure. We are telling women that it's okay, even if people in general interpret a message from you a certain way. And I mean, you know, you should be able to do whatever you want. We're setting them up to be in an uncomfortable situations where they have the potential to experience rape and or assault. And I would even go so far to say that people who discourage this type of advice towards younger women are being rape makers. You are making the circumstances in which a woman will be in a dangerous situation and may experience assault or rape. Congratulations, rape makers. That's my nuclear take. So.
Oh, right on the paint.
All right. Well. All right. Raise your hand, everyone. All right. Which one of you is a rape manufacturer? All right.
Gotcha.
Let's go to Wick.
Okay, so this is a topic that is complicated. It's not easy to dissect. I've had a lot of conversations about this with people on both sides of the issue. For me, my opinion is thus that yes, certain people and certain systems will try to use these things, these pieces of advice, to blame women. This does happen. That said, I think that it is a mistake, and it would be a mistake to stop giving this advice. People do not spring from the womb knowing to be distrustful, knowing these things. I hear this all the time, like, oh, don't tell us this. Why are you telling us this advice? We already know this advice. The only reason you know this advice is because someone in your life at some point took you aside and told you this. They educate you. And I am not going to assume that everyone in my life automatically just knows this. I think it would be a mistake to do so. That said, there's obviously a way you can do it that will be more palatable to the person that you're trying to help. You can come off as accusatory, infantilizing, and belittling when you do give these advices. So it's important to know your audience and to know how to give said advice. And even if it's warranted, I would never give this advice to someone after the fact. I think that is a terrible thing to do. To give this advice after the damage has been done, they don't need that right now. It does more harm than good. But an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And if you take people aside and we educate people, I think that's a very important thing to do. I do not think it is victim blaming necessarily to say, hey, look, you need to look out for yourself, because the only person you can control in these situations is yourself. We cannot control, and it would be great, it would be wonderful if the men and other victimizers stop doing it. But we have to look out for ourselves. We can only control what we do. And so in these situations, yes, watch your drink when you're at a party. Yes, make sure that you have an exit plan, an escape plan. Do not put yourself in dangerous situations. Use wisdom, and that is all. Even if you get hurt, even if you don't do any of these steps and you get hurt, it's still not your fault. I would never say that, but we have to be wise, and that's my statement.
Okay, all right. Ashley, you wanted to go forth. This is not a precedent we're setting. Next time we'll just do the thing. But go ahead forth, Ashley.
I think my take for the most part has already been said, so I'm gonna do what I do best and add in the trans angle. Common advice that you get as a trans woman, that everyone in the trans community will tell a trans woman is tell people that you're dating that you're trans, right? Or tell people that you're like having a drink with or at a bar with that you're trans, right? And it's not that necessarily you should have to do that in my belief, but like it's also like it would be stupid not to, because so many people are so people that are against trans people are very aggro about it. So like it wouldn't be my fault if I got murdered, but like at the same time there's stuff that I can do to just not have that happen that I could easily do. So like I think that all this advice is very similar to that. And I think that just in general, like this exists with abusive relationships as well. Like if you've been in several abusive relationships, you're insanely more likely to get into another one. So like telling somebody, hey, maybe you should seek therapy before you go into another relationship is not bad advice, and it's not blaming you for being in the previous ones. It's not saying that, like, I don't know, just in all this, I think that the onus doesn't become on you if you get advice to do something that's preventative. It just means that you can take actions that don't that don't allow it to happen as easily.
Getting a lot of similar takes here. I might have to fight the entire panel on this. Bam. Do I have to fight you too? You know I'm going to want to.
My take's a little different from everyone's in here. I think that I think I generally like it, I could tell by the consensus of the people in this room. I'm like, all these people are like pretty smart and also pretty scummy individuals. So we're probably gonna come to like the truth of the matter. But I think there are no like decent conversations on sex, including this one. Honestly, I still feel like the conversation we're having come from a perspective of like teaching women to avoid the monsters of the world, or more the monsters of society. And I don't think that that's how these situations happen. I don't think that there's a bad guy that's like rubbing his hands with the like twirly mustache that like if you run into him, you know, you have to like, if you run into him, he's like he's the rape maker, he's the raker. But I think that like I said, I think sex is super complicated for everyone on every side involved. And I think a lot of these situations, don't get me wrong, there are absolutely some like insane people who will like do horrible things to people, but I think the vast majority of cases are things where two people who have probably both have issues dealing with their emotions, have terrible pieces of communication, and like they end up in a situation where one person, generally the women, because of like the power dynamics of society, ends up in a situation that's really uncomfortable for her, and she's not like, and like that's really unfortunate. But yeah, I just think that we'll never get anywhere in society because all women are told to like all men are told not to rape, and all women are told to avoid walking down dark alleys. But that's not going to get us to the crux of the rape, the crux of solving the actual rapes that happen in society and the actual cases of sexual assault, whatever that word means in 2022.
I agree with you mostly, Bam. That makes me sad because I like yelling at you. All right, moving on. Let's go to last username.
Yeah, so we can and must be able to talk simultaneously about, or simultaneously to say that people who commit crimes are the ones who are primarily responsible for those crimes, and at the same time say that everyone should protect themselves from those people, from those dangerous people out there. These two things are not incompatible, and when you say the latter, you're not denying the former. Okay, we can say them both at the same time, and you can say the latter in a way that is not cruel or you know, is going to damage someone's psyche. I believe that's entirely possible. People do bad things, and they're responsible for those bad things, but bad people are out there and you should protect yourself. It's just very simple. We wouldn't say that you shouldn't lock your door because it's not your fault if someone burglarizes you. It's the burglar's fault. Of course it's the burglar's fault, but you should still lock your door. Okay? Pretty simple. And it's also not clear to me that telling someone that they could have prevented something from happening to them is necessarily going to make them feel worse. When something bad happens to me, I don't want to hear necessarily that there was nothing I could do to prevent that, because usually when that happens, I'm looking for a way to stop that from happening again. I want to feel like I have control over my life, and to do that, I need to know that I can somehow stop that from happening again. I want to feel like I can do that. And if someone says you couldn't have stopped that, you couldn't have prevented that from happening, they're basically saying you can't stop it from happening again. You have to be afraid of this happening again, and that's scary. So, it's not clear that the message, there's nothing you can do about this, is even going to help someone. I can think of, speaking for myself, I can think of a lot of times that really just make me feel worse. So let's just consider that too. All right, I'm done.
Thank you, last year's name, for actually being concise here. Half-baked takes.
So I feel like my point has gotten made a lot, but I don't think giving advice necessarily creates a situation where you're like justifying or creating a world where the thing you're giving on advice on is acceptable, or that it is even like really the perpetuated idea in society. I think like a lot of people have said, men know not to rape, and the men that are going to commit violent acts, they're going to do that regardless of that advice we give them typically. So providing women with the best possible advice is probably the best course of action. However, when I spoke to my fiance and I gave her this take earlier, she kind of got pissed at me. So I thought there was going to be some other opinions on this. So I'm kind of curious to hear what you're going to say here, Prime.
Okay. Yeah. So looks like the woman is the brains of the operation there. All right. So thank you, buddy. And finally, our Dark Lord Savior, Doobie, please.
Stardust is right, and I think that there are definitely rape makers out there. I think you see them all over, these the feminist sections of Twitter and Reddit and whatnot, telling women to go out and live their best life and do a bunch of drugs and whatever the fuck they want without worrying about anything. And shaming people who tell women to, like, hey, maybe don't go out and get high with some dude you just met, maybe don't do that. I think Stardust is right. Very simple.
Okay. Then
and I gotta add, I think there are some rape makers in disguise on this panel who aren't being honest about their position.
Okay.
What advice do y'all feel?
What name and shame?
Thank you. Thank you for bringing up Doobie. Prime. As long as Prime exists, all right. As long as Prime profits off of this, all right, I will give women that advice. I will go out there and I will tell them to watch their backs, to watch what panels they go on, to watch what happens, to watch what answers and DMs they listen to. As long as Prime exists, all right, he's like Musan from Demon Slayer. He put a seed in men because he
again with the weed stuff.
Assault.
Shut up. Nobody cares.
And why are we talking about putting seed in men?
Let me give my opinion on this, and then I'll go to you,
That's
Stardust,
homophobic, but we can
and Wick. Okay, all right. So my opinion apparently differs from almost everyone here. I think that one, so people think, so we give this advice to women, and it seems like they believe there's a step 2, in which step 2 is we go to men and say, don't do these things to women, right? Like, don't actually take these actions. I don't think it's actually happening. I think for a lot of people, it's not happening, or at least it's not happening in an effective way. When you say that half-baked takes, I don't know what your fiance was actually thinking, what her a particular contention is, right? But you say, well, men know not to rape, but rape is a huge prevalent thing in our society. Right, so that's not the case. It's like manifestly untrue.
No, but that's not because we tell. One does not equal the other, right? It's not. They're not
no,
doing that in light of that. They're doing that because they don't give a shit about that being a society.
no. I think you don't understand. I think you don't
people
understand rape.
don't.
I think Bam was getting
Think it's
closer.
okay
to-
as they rape. They know that they're doing something fucked up.
No, you do, again. I don't think you understand sexual assault.
It
All we
depends.
say is
Bam-
like
Bam
don't
was
pin
getting
someone
closer to it.
down. Yeah,
It
all we say
depends.
is men don't like hold someone against a wall and scream in their face and like, oh, I'm raping you. Like that's the only thing we ever talk about when it comes to rape, and that's the only thing women know how to like. Women are taught to protect themselves from is the big scary like monster person.
Dan,
Like
I agree with you, but the prompt of the question is talking about stuff like don't walk home at night. Don't go over to a man's house that you don't really like, that you're not totally comfortable with.
I don't even think that's the majority of sexual
These are
assaults.
bigger than, you
I
know
don't
what I
think
mean?
that's the
Well,
majority of rape.
not.
But that's hold on. Don't jump in yet.
Wait a
I
minute.
want to finish. I want to focus. Don't worry. No, I'm gonna go to you next, Stardust. I promise. Right, Stardust, Wick, and then Ashley. Okay. So yeah, but that's part of it. The advice, the common advice we give women is not the advice that even is going to protect them, right? It's this leads to a mindset, right? Now that we've given this advice, now we put this out there, right? That if you didn't follow it, well, then it's your fault, right? Or not understanding that the majority of sexual assaults that happen don't happen in cases where that advice would even be useful, right? It happens in gray areas. It happens where two people who are getting to know each other, right, interact in a way, and one person might leave feeling extremely like weird about that situation, right? And that they thought they gave maybe they gave consent, maybe they didn't. They're not sure. The person, maybe the male here, thought they got consent, maybe they didn't. They're not sure, but like something weird happened here, and we don't even have words to describe that thing.
Yeah, but that's just better sexual education, though, right? That's not.
Well, that's what we're talking about.
No, but we're talking about the advice we provide women, not the advice we provide men, right?
No, but that's
advice for women too. Yeah.
Yeah, all of this is.
Yes, it's also good advice for women. Yes, obviously, but
let's go. Well, let's get a start. Don't worry, we'll get to you. Stardust, Wick, and Ashley.
So I want to make a couple of points here. I would say, in response to what last username was saying about after a rape, I would say that there are things that that person can learn from the experience, but I think it's probably it's not so much the advice that like there's nothing you could have done that you should be giving somebody after a rape. I think it's more like it happened. It happened. It's something that happened, and you can't change it. That's more of like a that's more of like I think a very neutral kind of like thing you can say to somebody like.
But what does that mean?
Happened.
It's so
What does it
I mean,
mean?
it doesn't. I mean, literally speaking, obviously they know that. So what are you trying to say when you say that?
I guess that there's nothing they can do now to change the past, right?
But they know that.
Happened.
Like, of course they know
Yeah.
that. See, but when I
yeah,
hear
they
that,
know
it sounds like
that.
someone's trying to. I would feel like someone's trying to make me feel worse if they said that to me. I don't want to hear that, right? Like I know literally that I can't change the past. Obviously, that just sounds like condescending, right?
Well,
Well, it
no,
depends on the
I think
timeline.
I actually don't. So I think that like a lot of people in that situation think that anything that somebody is saying, and especially like right after that, anything that somebody is saying is putting, because already there's a lot of shame that comes out of a situation like that. There's a lot of shame, a lot of like embarrassment that comes out of experiencing that. So immediately, like the things that somebody says can be interpreted as blaming them for something in the past, right? It's not so much about blaming somebody for what they've already experienced because we know it already happened, but it's about like finding a way to phrase these things in a way where it's like in the future you can protect yourself, you have the power to protect yourself, right? So it's just very hard. I would say like when it comes around that immediately after that kind of situation, I think it's just hard to kind of navigate that kind of conversation. In regards to what Bam said, I do think that conversations about sex and relationships are complicated, and we haven't really figured them out yet as a whole. But I would push back on what Prime is saying about some of this advice. I do think that these gray areas can occur when you're advising a girl to, hey, don't go over to a guy's house unless you're aware of that message that you are giving to him. Don't go over to a guy's house unless you are aware or that you know that, you know how he feels about you, right? Because there are going to be plenty of times that you go over to a guy's house who you're friends with, who you trust, and who makes a move on you because you've been drinking or because you spent the day together, and he's interpreting that as an invitation. So I don't think that it should be anything wrong or anything victim blamey about saying to a woman, hey, you just spent all night with this guy. You've been out drinking. If you go over to his house, he's probably taking that as an invitation.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with giving the advice. It's just that I think the advice becomes a stand-in for actually dealing with the problems that we're facing. That advice doesn't equal much to stop the fact that sexual assaults keep happening, and that intentionally or unintentionally. And I think that there's this focus on this advice is given a weight. It's given a weight, and as if it's a solution. The advice is not a solution. It's
It
a
might be.
band-aid. Again, you can give the advice, it's fine, but like it doesn't solve anything.
What do you mean
understand what
solve?
you're
You
saying,
mean
Prime,
end
that
all?
it's not it's not an end all be all. It's not something that it should not be the end of the conversation. And I'm with you, Prime, in that we do 100% need to have this conversation with men more. We just don't. And I mean, not to be blaming or anything, but Prime, you phrased this question. You chose this question. You chose this topic. You chose the method on which we were dealing with this question, and
This
you
was literally
framed it as
Stardust.
something.
No, Prime, like
This is
we have
Stardust.
to,
Hate makers.
you're taking the onus away from women at that point. Like, yes, obviously, the solution isn't to remove the advice; it's just to provide more information towards men. Like, we know the problem is men. We're not saying women are the problem. We're just saying that the solution is provide more information to everybody. Right?
Women's
Yeah,
part of
it
the
sounds
problem.
like
I'll say that.
no. It
Not the
sounds
women, not the victims.
I feel like
but
again we are setting up women for failure, and we are setting them up to get raped and assaulted, and we're creating rape by not giving them good advice.
Who is saying to not give the advice though?
I
Who is
see
saying
it
Your
all the
question,
time. I
though,
see
but
it
isn't
all
your
the time.
No, my question. Hold on. This is not my question. This is her question. This is the question she brought up, right? So, any which way, right? Like, who are you saying is
sorry.
is not doing
Apologies.
that Stardust?
Apologies,
Please.
Prime. I didn't mean to blame you for this.
It
I
says
should blame
credit Stardust right
I
there.
no, I
Sorry.
know. I'm
Listen.
sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to come at it like that.
Oh,
It is
I'm
a very
sorry. I
common
didn't
thing. A
realize.
lot of
I
people
wasn't
do
paying
say that.
attention for
You,
a
though,
second.
Prime.
Otherwise, I would have taken full credit for this question.
My bad.
Yeah, no, it's. I came up with the question because I wanted to drop my hot fucking takes. Okay, I see it on Twitter. I see it on Twitch. Okay, I see like fucking lefty Twitch saying like, oh no, you can't advise a woman to not do that because you're putting the blame on her. I'm not putting the blame on her. I'm trying to give her proactive advice and not create a situation in which she's going to get raped. Jesus fucking
I'll be
Christ.
heated.
Prime, can I just
How
ask?
you come after
So,
me for the
I'm
weeb
with you.
shit, but you talk about lefty Twitter, bro?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
Come on.
Come on.
I'm with you,
Continue.
Prime.
Yeah, well,
I'm with you,
weeb
Prime.
Twitter.
When you say that this doesn't solve the problem. Of course it doesn't solve the problem. But do you not believe that this common sense advice can reduce the problem even if it's just by 5%? Is that not worth doing? Is that not still worth doing? I understand
Wait,
that it
before you
cannot be the
go on
end.
your high horse here, I literally already
Yeah.
said I'm fine with the advice.
Okay. But a lot of
Actually,
people
you're
are.
just gonna have to jump in. I'm gonna be honest with you.
A lot of
That
people
hand
are.
not gonna get you nowhere.
And this bothers me on a level that whenever I do try to talk about this conversation, we can't get past this point to get to the men because we get stuck on this point because everyone starts complaining. Why aren't you talking about men? We'll get to them. Don't worry. But we have to preface.
But we
with
don't.
This.
That's the thing. That's the thing right there. We don't actually get to
And
men.
we should.
We always
like
do.
this is my
always
problem. Is that like it this advice tends to be thought terminating, right? That we don't go. We assume the problem is solved. Well, not we. Not I don't put you guys. All right, I don't put what you think. But society does so, right? And you say, or not you say, but people say that men do get this advice. They are confronted, but they aren't, and their behavior is allowed in big ways and small ways to like fester, in which they have like um, for so many men, like there's a bit of an impunity in how they behave towards women that creates a more dangerous environment, right? Both like when it comes to like sexual assault, like in itself, but like there's a whole like spectrum of terrible things that can happen before then.
So let's talk about it then right now. Let's talk about ways that guys inadvertently, because when Half Baked Take said it, that people, oh, they know when they're rating. I strongly disagree with that. A lot of the problem comes is that guys do not realize what they are doing is wrong. They do not realize what they are doing is actually violating someone's consent. And I think that, yes, that's a very important conversation. So I'm willing to have that
I
right
do
now.
agree.
think it's
I do agree with you.
Hold
Just
on,
really
wait
quick,
a second.
just
Hold
really-
on, no. Sorry. Ashley's been waiting. Ashley, Half Baked Takes legal.
That's directed at Half Baked Take, so if he wants to go before me, he can.
Yeah, so really quick, and I'll be quick, Ashley. I'm not saying those gray zone, like we don't need to educate men on like that gray area more, because that I think is where we all agreed the biggest problem lies, is where guys think they're almost doing something okay, or they're pushing those bounds, and like the uh 20 no's and a yes still means yes type mentality. I do think getting away from that is a good thing. However, I was talking about those clear cut, somebody's walking alone in the middle of the night and they go out and they like assault a woman. Like, my bad. I do know that there is quite a bit of nuance there, and I just wanted to make that clear, Wick.
Okay.
I am aware of the problem that we have with that gray zone and men not understanding what consent.
I understand, but to
really-
Prime's point, like we need to discuss this because this is a
Oh,
problem.
I agree, and that's
Okay.
what that was my initial point, was we
Sure.
need to
Okay,
educate
gotcha.
men more specifically on this shit, because
Got you.
that's where that problem lies.
Let's go to Ashley, then Wiggle, then Tibby.
So, just to talk about like advice that we could give to men. I mean, like I've gone outside at night, right? In the city and been fine, right? I've gone over to somebody's house to play D&D that I didn't know that well and been fine. But the only time that I think I've come closest to sexual assault was I was in a sexual encounter with a guy, and I wasn't ready to actually have sex, but he wanted to, and I wasn't saying no, I wasn't saying anything. And he actually stopped himself because he saw me start crying. And I think that that was like a very mature man that realized what was going on. Even though I hadn't explicitly said no, I just wasn't ready for that. And he was able to identify that and completely back off. And I very much respect him for that. And I think that that's the type of place where that's where rapes happen, when people don't realize that they're pushing consent, right? I don't think that guys know that because there was no there, right? I didn't tell him no, but like he thought that he had my consent, and he realized that he didn't. And I think that the reason why he realized is because I wasn't for it. I wasn't excited about it. There's a certain consent that's not necessarily only made by a yes. There's another level of consent where you actually want to do it. Where I think you can convince a woman to say yes, but it's a lot harder to convince a woman, or it's a very different thing for a woman to want to. And I think that that's where the distinction is that a lot of men don't really know.
I think a lot of people.
Half Baked Takes, and then sorry, not Half Baked Takes. Wiggle, sorry, Wiggle, and then Doobie, and then
Yeah, I think Americans want this, like as Half Baked Takes were saying, this like gray area. I like that term. Like I think like Americans want that shit. Other countries probably want it as well. I can only speak to America. We want that wide realm, like, and we fight against it all the time. It's like masks. We fight for that gray area to be very large. And these are the casualties of that. And then we're talking about reducing those casualties. We're talking about we don't want sexual assaults, etc. But we don't want to regulate this. That's beyond. We do not want that. Americans don't want that. They want this place to exist where women and men will mingle with each other, and then sexual assaults can happen. And we want there to be this gray area because we think it brings us more utility than it brings negatives. And then we talk about reducing the harm from that environment. I think that's very important to focus on, because when I hear things like what Prime's talking about or other people are talking about on that side, I hear like, we're not solving the major problem. We can't solve the major problem because we've decided not to, or we've decided that government can only be involved to a certain degree, and then we cut them out. And this is between individuals, and this is between what we tell people, advice we give, how you're supposed to act in these environments. And I think as long as that continues,
is there
in
any
America,
country where the nation is involved in individual
perhaps,
sexual encounters?
but I'm not a citizen of every country. I'm a citizen of America, so I can only talk about like living in New York, living here. Perhaps the whole world is like that.
Is
I don't know.
anyone proposing legislation for that?
I don't know. In
No.
America, yes. There's like legislation that's proposed to like protect victims of sexual assault, I imagine, all the time.
Yeah.
But Wiggle, would you say
But it
like
would
people
fail,
are
yeah.
would you say people are educated enough on what that gray zone is? My point is that people aren't educated enough on like the gray zone, and we should probably talk about it a lot more because it's so misunderstood. But I'm curious.
I would agree. I agree 100% on that. I think that you tapped on this, and I think Ashley tapped on this and a few others, but you guys are the only people I can remember. The idea of like men not knowing what to do because they're getting conflicting messaging from like other men in society until they get something like a woman crying in front of them. Until they have like an emotional trigger that lets them know something is wrong. Because they're told, hey, like, wrong is not no. Wrong is not now. And so they're told these things, and then they get an emotional response like somebody crying or someone like pushing them, a shove, something like this, and then everything breaks down. Everything else is less important. Right now they realize what I'm doing is wrong. And that's kind of fucked up. It's fucked up that's the situation that a lot of people are in. And I do agree with you that like we'd want to educate people more so that doesn't happen. But even when people are educated to that point, where's the end of education? Is it just a continuous? I think it's just a continuous fight.
Do you think
you'll never end?
Educate them in what? Like, are we sure that there is some sort of answer to that we could teach everyone? And if they knew it, then like it's not entirely clear to me that we even have answers to those questions. Like, like exactly. Basically, the education that I got was basically if a woman says no, then no means no. But if they don't say no, then it's then what? That's like what kind of affirmative consent do we need? What do I need affirmative consent for? How often do I need it? Do I need to like ask like all this stuff that is not clear we actually know the answer to? So before we talk about educating people, maybe we need to talk about what exactly are we going to educate them? What are we going to tell them?
It's because we
And
have a society that
also,
caters
just to add on real quick, I think also an important issue to talk about is the rules are still changing around like
Yes.
what men are supposed to be doing, what the initiating partner is supposed to be doing. The rules are not set in stone. The rules are constantly changing. The one thing that we know for sure is that we can give women advice to be protecting themselves, and we can give men advice to protect themselves. But when the rules are still up in the air for everything around relationships, we can advocate for more education. I 100% am in agreement with that. We can advocate about talking about gray zones more. But again, because the rules are still changing and because we're still figuring this out together, the most important advice is going to be proactively protecting yourself.
I think that
Doobie,
Alex,
hold on. Doobie, Bam, Wick, anyone else? All right.
Yeah, so I think even on this panel, right, we're not really being honest about what the gray area is, because honestly, like no doesn't always mean no. Sometimes no means I want you to try because it turns me on when you push me. Right?
Or
Sometimes,
pushing
and
is
this is for men and women, right?
yeah.
I do this shit sometimes with my girlfriend, right? Where she will show up and try to grab my dick. I say, no, leave me alone. I'm working. She keeps doing it. It's really funny. We end up like actually like I physically trying to fight her off my dick, and eventually I let her have it, right? Like sometimes you just do, and she does the same fucking thing, literally like wrestling to like get my hand into her pants, right? Because and the entire time she's saying no, but if I stop, she doesn't get mad at me, and I know this because it doesn't actually mean no. And people do that in relationships. They do that in first in like one night stands. So like it's not as like simple as oh she says no, it means no, or he says no, it always means no, right? Like that's not really how people operate, unfortunately. It's not that simple. And sometimes yes isn't actually yes. Yes is I'm afraid, so I'm gonna let you do it. Right. So like, um, I don't know. I don't think we're like. I think we got to be honest about like the intricacies of this shit because it's not as like clear cut, right? And I don't think it'll ever be.
Yeah,
So I
before
think
we
wanting
start
it to
talking
be,
about getting the law involved and the government involved, like figure out let's try to settle on some social norms before we start, talking about throwing people in jail for violating norms.
Well, I agree with you, last year's name, and I agree with what Doobie is saying. Before we go to Bam, Wick, and then Hot Pick Takes. But I think what you're hitting on, DB, is that there's more than one access here, right? It's not simply consent, right? And consent, you get the thing, right? You get the consent, right? Even understanding that consent is like sort of on the spectrum, like fucking everything else is, right? Yeah, that there's more to it, right? There's like how they feel about that relationship. Do they feel safe in that relationship? Do you feel safe to express yourself to your partner? If you can, then you will, right? If not, right, if you think there will be consequences, then you'll say yes, but maybe not. You Are you able to joke? You guys are honest about your sexual desires. That a way you can do that, where you can freely say that you can joke around, like what Doobie unfortunately subjected us to, right? Like, is that a thing that you can do within your relationship? Not everyone is like that. So I think there's so many other ways that we have to judge these individual situations. And to last year's Nan's point, I don't know how well this could ever neatly fall into a law. But let's go to Bam and then Wick takes.
Yeah, I don't think that like Stardust said that like we need to give everybody good advice, but like yeah, advice to protect themselves. But I don't think the advice we give men helps them protect themselves. Like because the advice we give men is to like get the enthusiastic yes. I've even seen it like 12 times in the chat since we've been here, and no one says yes, I do agree to this thing, and then we do the next thing. Like that's not like there will be one person laid in the history of sex. Like it's not sexy. It's not sexy to get a thumbs up. But we can talk about the concept of like reaffirming things in the middle, like, are you okay? Are you comfortable? Does this feel good? Like there's a and there's like a like there's a natural way of following through these sexual encounters for that I think people who have real sex in real life like understand. The second part of that is crap. I think that like generally speaking, the way we talk about protecting women is I don't know. Go to Wick. I'll come back to me. There was a second point.
Okay,
Can I
so I
add
have a
one
couple.
thing?
I don't have
Just
real
like
sex in real
one
life, so I
sentence.
wouldn't understand. Let's go to Wick. He's been waiting a bit. Half Baked takes Stardust.
Okay, so there, this has opened up a can of worms, but I think it's amazingly important to talk about. Probably the most important thing to talk about is it all comes down to communication and to being able to communicate properly with your partner or partners. And unfortunately, and this is going to be perhaps my hottest take of the night, this is why casual sex and the culture surrounding it is dangerous and it creates so many problems and so much risk because these problems that are exacerbated when you don't know someone, when you've just met someone. You're still learning how to communicate with them. You're still learning what they mean when they use certain words because not everyone means the same thing. You don't know how they are communicating yet. You haven't had the time to find out. And a lot of these problems will go, not all of them, obviously, but a lot of them go away when you are with someone for an extended period of time before you engage in sexual relations. And it solves these issues. You're able to talk better. You're able to communicate better. And these are all things that improve the dynamic of a relationship in a way that's just so important. Like, we talk about social norms. We talk about how confusing all this is. And it is. But that, and there is no societal standard really when it comes down to it, because I've been in situations. Well, I'll tell you about a situation. I was very young, when I was very young, and young Wick was first trying to get some. Okay, and so I was with a girl and we were making out, and she's like, oh no no,
I don't believe it. Sorry, go ahead.
okay, believe it or not, she's like, no no no, I'm a good girl. I don't do this. I'm like, oh okay.
It's
But then
always a lie.
2 minutes later, she's like, good girls like bad boys. What the fuck was I supposed to do? What was I supposed to do with that?
So
It
do
was
okay?
confusing to young Wick.
It's always a lie
So
when they
you
say
were,
that.
so you're a
And-
bad boy, is what I got from.
And
Yeah,
well,
he's a
yeah. And
very bad
anyway,
boy.
so what I'm saying is that everyone's going to have an individual standards on this. Everyone's going to have a different way of doing it, and uh, you have to protect yourself, gang. Like, women and men both, communicate with your partners. Be able to understand what they mean when they use certain words. That's like the only solution that I can see. Anyway.
Oh, I remember my point. Can I say it before I forget it again?
Please go ahead.
You're good,
Mhm.
man.
Yeah. Number one, like outside of being like physically bigger, we don't even know if necessarily men are um that much more likely to be sexual assaulters. Like, I think that the reason we live in a society that men seek consent and women say yes or no. If the society, men are always the ones that are initiating, men are gonna always be the ones that cross the line because there's only one side, and like one side going for it. So like, obviously men are gonna be the people that cross the line because women don't initiate with men as often. Also, the second thing, I think there's a lot of cases in sex that people get uncomfortable. Like, a lot of times in sex, people get uncomfortable or feel like they're in a situation that's like, ah, crap, this is weird to back out of. Even myself, I remember I've done a hookup before, where like you drive over there, like you've been talking to them, you drive over there, and then you get there, and it's like, ah, crap, this is kind of a catfish, or ah, crap, I don't even know if I really want to do this. But I already used the gas. They're already here. This would be a really effed up thing if I got up and left right now, like, or to say no right now. So you go through with it, and afterwards you don't feel great about the situation. And I think that, like, and this happens with men, but I feel like this also happens with women who are like, I'm in this guy's house. If I say no right now, what's gonna happen? This feels really weird. Maybe I should just go through with it. And then like they don't really feel great about the encounter.
Okay. Let's go to half baked takes. Ashley, then Doopy, please.
So, Wick, like, two things. Like, one, I wholeheartedly agree with you on the communication aspect of this. I think the education that we're all talking about when we say, like, let's educate men, I think that education is communicating and like learning how to pick up on the vibes that Bam was talking about. Like, that is just, I don't know how we do it because I'm not an educator, but I think that's the way you go about this is you teach young men and young women how to communicate on communicate better. However, as a person who enjoyed casual sex and is an advocate for casual sex, like in a safe manner, I don't think saying all casual sex is bad because you don't know how to
I said it's
communicate.
dangerous. I want to be
It,
very
I,
clear. I said it's dangerous. Not that you shouldn't do it. Not that you should. It's
I was
bad.
getting
Not
a
that it's
lot of
immoral.
like,
But that
I
it
was
is
getting some real,
necessarily more dangerous. It is more dangerous than
but
sex with someone in a committed
yeah,
relationship.
that's probably true. And obviously, just like educate yourself and know that there are predators out there. So just know who you're talking to.
Okay. Ashley, then Doopy.
I'm not actually sure that casual sex is more dangerous. I just think you need to be the type of person for it. I think that like
Why would you say that? Why would you say it's not as dangerous?
I think that like if you're out there engaging in casual sex and you're very comfortable with it, right? Which I'm not saying everyone that does it is, but if you're generally more comfortable with it, I don't see that as a dangerous spot. I actually see engaging with one partner in certain circumstances being way more dangerous.
How
But
so?
then casual sex is more dangerous. Just as the people that take part in it are more experienced.
Yeah, I
And they
think
take
that
more precautions. And they
well,
take more
yes, I
precautions.
think
Yeah.
that inherently you would take more precautions because it's a complete
Because you
stranger.
recognize it's more dangerous, so you take more precautions. And because you take more precautions, perhaps it is less
Yeah,
likely to
I
lead to
might agree
harm.
to that, but I
but
would say that the more dangerous situations are like longer relationships where, or like even short form relationships where you get attached to somebody and like they kind of push you into those sexual encounters, right? Early on. Like I think that that's way more common to be boundary pushing than casual sex where you take those precautions. I think that's harder to take those precautions in a relationship.
It seems to be true statistically. Like like it is. It is. I think yeah, casual encounters are more dangerous necessarily, but it seems to be true in like what plays out in real life is situations involving someone.
Regardless,
I mean,
though, they're going to be
I get
dangers
that
that are
because you let your guard
unique
down.
to casual sex.
Because you
right?
let your guard down.
Casual
And you trust
encounters,
people and-
casual encounters aren't absent of people you trust. But I think we're conflating things incorrectly. I think casual encounters can still involve people that you trust, like a fuck buddy, or
Yeah,
somebody
but
that
there's
you're friends
differences
with,
there.
somebody that like that you're chill with, or even just like the practical advice we give is not even necessarily for this relationship dynamic. It's just about like if you go out with friends and you've spent the night with some, partying with somebody, if you go over to their house, you're probably sending a signal to them of some sort.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And I
these
think
are,
that you can engage in that safely. Like I
yeah.
think that you would take precautions even if it's a friend. I think that a relationship's very different because like I don't know. I've been in sorry, I've been in a good amount of abusive relationships over the last couple of years. They've been hell. Um but yeah, in those like I've not felt comfortable saying no, and maybe that's because obviously I'm not in a great situation, but like that's when my boundaries have gotten pushed. It would never be just some random person, right?
And
Or
I
even
think
just a friend that
I tend
I'm
to
doing
disagree.
one if I'm doing like one encounter with a guy, even if they're my friend, right? Like if it's a one-off, I don't think my boundary's going to get crossed as
so
much as
I tend to
maybe it helps.
disagree. I tend to disagree. So I think that it's not exclusive to long-term relationships, and it's not
It's not
exclusive to
exclusive.
short-term
I'm
relationships
not saying
either.
it's
Oh,
exclusive.
no, I know you're not, but I'm saying I think it happens in both. I think it happens in
I
both.
think it
Where
happens in both, but there's more of a risk in long term.
Well, they haven't fucked you yet, so it's like in the casual relation, like if you're hooking up with someone, they want to fuck you. So like they
Well,
haven't
if
fucked you
it's a
yet.
casual relation, there may be a communication error where somebody thinks that they are going over just to hang out, and the other person thinks that this person's coming over to fuck. Right?
Yeah,
That
But
happens
there's
frequently enough.
that
there's
happens for sure, but there's precautions that you'll generally take.
Yeah, and these
so
are the
you're gonna
precautions.
be more
These are the
precautious.
precautions that we give to people, right, who are engaging in these. But if people can't take those precautions because there are a lot of women who are afraid of confrontation, who are afraid of saying no, we would advise them, if you are afraid of saying no, if you are not in a place where you feel like you can communicate effectively, then you probably shouldn't be engaging in a casual relationship.
Okay, I
Yeah,
want to
I
be
would
very
agree
clear,
with
just
that.
real quick. I just want to be very clear that my advice is primarily intended towards men here when I say it's very important to be able to properly communicate and recognize when your partner is properly communicating with you. And it is important for women too. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to create this false kind of dichotomy here. But when I say casual sex, I mean like hookups. I'm not talking about someone you've known for years and suddenly it becomes more than just friendship. I'm talking like hookups, one night stands, going on Tinder, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I just want to clear that up. Thank you.
Yeah, and you know what you're getting into with that. Like there can be like you know what you're getting into with that. If you get into a relationship with somebody, right? And they push you really hard for sex, right? I feel like
But
that's a
do
lot
you?
harder to say no to than a
So
But it's
casual
like
so
but,
I
but,
just
but, the- but
really quick. I just want to push back against this actually because I don't think like for example I could be going out to hook up to go to the bar and I want to pick up a woman. I want to bring her home and I want to have sexual relationships with her. The woman who is there might not be there for the same thing. And if I do not recognize, and if I cannot recognize that she is not there for that same thing, it's going to create a lot of problems.
Well, yes,
And
I agree.
it's very dangerous.
And
yeah.
I think it can be dangerous, but that's my point. Like, if you're going to somebody's house, right? Or if you're going into these these casual sexual encounters, you probably are a lot more comfortable just walking away, because if you leave, right? Now, yes, if the guy's being dangerous with you, this is a very different situation. But I think we would agree this is a dangerous situation. We're assuming not a bad actor here necessarily, right?
Yeah,
and what
the
me and you are
nature-
talking
Can
about
I
right now.
just
But
I-
that's
here's the thing. I would say that yes, you may be right as somebody who's more experienced in those encounters. But what I have seen is that a lot of women feel pressured to be partaking in hookup culture, because hookup culture is the only dating culture that, or at least it is the most widespread dating culture today, right? That is generally, that seems like what it is. It seems like everybody's partaking in it, and it seems like it's kind of like a rite of passage for a lot of people, right? To partake in like this hookup culture.
And let's not forget that there are
just call
apps out
Ashley a
there.
hoe.
There is apps with profit incentives to get you to participate in this culture. So it is an incentivized. It's something that is being pushed
Every
by
app
corporations.
is designed for this.
This-
That's what it feels like
this-
to me. I feel like when I was younger and my friends were getting into the age where you're going out and dating people, I thought for a long time that I had to put out or nobody would love me. Like that's like, it's toxic. It's really toxic. And so and it wasn't just me. I knew plenty of other people who thought that they had to put out, or they had to make their bodies available to people, or those people wouldn't even think about loving them or liking them.
And I
right?
agree. And you know where that happens a
you're-
lot? Relationships.
But if-
Longer term relationships, even shorter term
Sure. I'm not.
That's
I'm
where
not
that happens a
disagreeing with you. I'm
lot,
not.
because there's
Wait,
a
wait,
pressure
Ashley, I'm
to
not
stay
disagreeing
in
with
them.
you. I'm not disagreeing with you on
Okay.
longer term relationships, that it happens there. I'm saying that I think you're underestimating the prevalence of it in these.
I am saying it
short-term-
probably happens more in short-term relationships and like.
I don't know if we really need to have like
more than a couple.
a debate about like whether casual dating is worse than long-term relationships. Obviously, long-term relationships can be really fucked up and toxic. I think we all would agree to that. And
Yeah, I agree.
and there's also unique dangers that are unique to casual encounters with someone who you don't know very well. Like the less you know someone, the greater chance that they're gonna surprise you in some way that's gonna be dangerous. So like there's different kinds of dangers here. I don't think we need like trying to weigh like which one is worse. It's kind of comparing apples and oranges, right?
But
I'm just saying.
It's obviously going to depend on your
If we're
experience.
talking
too.
to men, if
I-
we're trying to
I
give
really-
advice to men, I
really
think
don't
that our
think one is-
advice
as a
should be-
man, I feel
I
like I
really
should have
don't
to
think-
communicate, like what Wick was saying. I should have the ability to
okay,
communicate.
so I really don't think one is worse than the other. That's kind of what I'm
It's
trying
going
to
to
communicate. is that
massively
it's
depend on the
just-
type of
They're
person you
different.
are
I
and your
think that they're
experience, right?
different more than
just
interest.
going to depend
Okay.
on the type of person partaking in it, right?
Doobie's in line, but I know Wiggles, excuse me, has a direct response. I
Yes.
can't tell the difference between you two. Has a direct response.
Wow.
So I want to hear that, and then do you want to
like,
go Doobie?
I'm like, this is like the crux of relationships. Relationships are built off confrontations. Like if you're in a relationship, like you're going to be arguing or having confrontations until you stop. Like you're choosing to be tethered to somebody where you're going to push boundaries until you realize what that person thinks about something before you even have to ask anymore. Like before you get to the point where you know what they want to eat, what they want, what they do in the morning, etc. You have those confrontations. Like your best friendships are friendships you have with people where like you've come at odds many times and then you understand each other. So that's just like part of it is like, yes, like if you're in a relationship with somebody, a long form relationship, they're going to like, if they like to have sex, they're going to pressure you to have sex. And then if you don't like to have sex as much, you're going to pressure them not to until you come to an agreement on that situation. If you're planning on being with them forever, or you're gonna break apart.
But the woman side of this is it's very scary, right? Like I think me and Stardust agree on one thing, which is the woman side of this is if you don't go for that sex, you are gonna get abandoned and nobody's ever going to love you. right?
But the male side of this, the
or
male
the
side
guy
of
who's
this,
That's
going to
what it
get
feels like as a
angry,
woman.
and
the
or he's going to get angry, right? Because we've known, like, some people associate confrontation with life or death situations, right?
Yes, and I think that's where men need the education if we're talking about what to educate men on. Like, I think that we really need to talk about like short-term / long-term relationships rather than casual sex, because at least in casual sex, it's like I think that's where
Why
like
at the
one-off.
expense of? Why not both? Why
yes.
can't we
I
talk
think
about
both, but I think that it's casual sex is like talked about more. I don't think we
Is
talk
it?
about
Yeah,
longer-term
yeah. Hold on,
relationships.
it definitely is. It
Wait,
definitely is.
but like, what
It
are the
most-
the benefits?
No,
What are the
there's you
benefits
can talk.
for what are the
Did you not
benefits
have
for
sex ed
men
in high school?
in
Sex ed in high school had like education about abusive relationships and things like
No, mine
that.
didn't.
Mine did.
but
Okay.
but
Mine
what
did
are-
not. Mine had
what-
advice on casual sex. It did not
what-
have that on abusive
Oh.
relationship.
So maybe
Alright,
there's
Relationships
like,
are really
so
Yeah, but-
complicated. I wouldn't expect
Wiggle,
to be
finish
able
it.
to learn
It-
much about relationships from
he's got his explaining hands
puberty
out, so I
class,
want to make sure you do it. Go ahead.
It's like, but yeah, like, what are the benefits for men to engage in long form relationships, and what are the benefits for women to? I personally believe that there's less benefits for men to engage in long form relationships. There's just less benefits for them. One of those benefits is to have like a consistent sexual partner. That's why, like, since there's less benefits, this is one of those benefits. There's more pressure there. There's other pressures that are placed on men when they're in long form relationships. There's pressures that they're placed on them by many women, which is like to be able to provide, to have more money, to take job opportunities they may not want in order to provide for the family, whereas they may place the opposite pressure on women in relationships. They may say, don't take job opportunities, you don't have to have as much ambition, we'll do this stuff, and it's vice versa.
Whoa! No, I want women to work for me. I want them
And
to
guess what?
provide. I want them to give me money. I would
Your
love it.
answers aren't
He
being
wants,
heard.
he
Your
wants to be a
answers
pimp,
aren't being
apparently.
heard.
But okay, go ahead. Let's go to Doobie, then last username has something to say.
Yeah, just really quickly on what Wiggle was saying. I think that's something that people don't talk about enough, right? So what men are taught about relationships is that they're meant to take on like the burden of providing like food, housing, comfort, etc., while sacrificing their own desires, right? And whether it's like long working hours or taking the shit position at church at work or shit shift at work because you got to buy your wife a new gift or whatever the fuck, working overtime, whatever the fuck. And we're taught that if you don't do those things, then you're a failure as a man, right? And if your wife cheats on you, it's because, hey, you couldn't pleasure her well enough. Right? That's your fault too, right? So I think people don't really talk about that. There's a ton of pressure that goes on men. People also don't talk about the fact that women sexually assault all the fucking time, right? And physically assault. They punch men, they scratch men, they slap men, they grab men's dicks, and it's just not reported because if, as a man, if you report that kind of shit, you're seen as a pussy. You're like a bitch, right? Because you reported some woman grabbing your dick without permission. Happens all the fucking time. So I think that there's too much focus here on men being like the aggressors or and whatever the fuck. It's true that men physically generally are gonna it's gonna be easier for them to intimidate a woman, to rape somebody if it comes to that, right? But it happens the other way too, right? It could be you're talking to some girl, she wants to have sex, and you're worried that if you say no, she's gonna go around and tell everybody that you didn't have sex with her because you're gay. Right? It's simple as that, right? So like, I feel like this is all very like, it's far more two-sided than we're making it out to be.
You're saying
agree
it's
with
too
you,
gyno
Yeah, I
focused?
agree.
Is that what you're saying?
I agree with you. Ruby. I think one of the main things is also when I talk about these proactive, like, offering young people practical advice on how to protect themselves. It's not just for women, right? We should be giving men the same advice about how to protect yourself, right? How to make sure that you are entering these relationships in a healthy way. Because I've seen too many men as well who get taken advantage of. And you're right. Reporting sexual assault as a man is a much harder experience. So,
I
last
also
username.
think we. Okay, I'll go.
And last username, then Bam, then Wick.
We're having like a dozen different discussions here. Pick a topic, and
Pick one.
I'll tell you something about it. Okay, so you know what? Come back to me.
Okay. All right. We'll go to Bam. Then we'll check with last username. If he's still not ready, we'll go to Wick, and then we'll check in with last username again. I want that opinion.
Good plan.
Bam.
Yeah, I think that like I think we have to do a better job of like teaching women to deal with the rejection. Like that's like men is it kind of comes as a part of the game. Like don't get me wrong, men this rejection does suck, but like we come to accept is like you ask for a girl's number, you approach women, and sometimes you get rejected, and you move on from that. But women like even it's came up in this conversation. Women say like, oh, if you don't put out, then you may get rejected, and as if has to be the worst thing that could possibly happen to you in your life. And if like and you have to go into like a dark depressive state because some guy said he didn't want you. Like I think that has to become like a normal human interaction. They're like, oh, what if he's what if me saying no makes him not like me? Then and that doesn't make him a bad person either because maybe that's what he wanted. But like you just have to be okay with sometimes like
Well, I think for
being
women, there's
rejected. But no, I just because I know we always like whenever we say like whenever we hear about these situations like oh yeah like I told the guy no and then he broke up with me like and they're like oh it's his loss baby he was a horrible person like maybe he was just didn't want what you wanted and he moved on with it like no people involved have to be bad no one has to be the bad guy no one has to be the demon like just yeah I think be rejected just it's okay be rejected it's fine.
in our society though, like women are really given like a lot, like a very clear time that like they're in their quote unquote prime, and then after that they're just kind of like thrown under the bus. Like women over 40, like if you try dating as a woman over 40, you're just seen as like a very out there thing in our society. And even like I don't know, like my experience on dating apps has very much been men that will give okay openers and then feel like they're entitled to you, right? When they're not like
Yeah.
great.
Could you explain
And
that?
you kind of have to like give in to that or you won't get with anyone because it feels like everyone's like
I don't know what you're
I'm
saying.
like,
Could you
damn, you
expand
get
on that?
openers. That's how I feel.
Yeah,
Dating app
right.
no,
it's
no.
dating
I
app
know that
culture.
that's what it feels like, but like the difference is that on my end, it's like I actually want to have like a meaningful relationship when it's my like it's sex that's kind of like what's pushed on like sorry, I'm fumbling words. The sexual aspects of me are what people want, right? And I feel like in a lot of early relationships you get pushed into that, but then there's also the fear of if you don't do that, no one will ever love
Well,
you.
I don't
There's
think
a
people
time
That's
limit
look
kind
also.
of
at
what Wick
dating
was
apps
kind
for
of
love.
going at,
Love
right?
you sexually. You can get love
Well,
from people that's not.
Wick was
But
kind
it
of
doesn't
talking
feel
about
like
that,
that.
right?
Oh,
That was
well,
what, yeah.
before we get to that, and I'm sure we'll jump back into it. Let's get to Lassie's name. See if he got.
Okay. Well, so we started off talking about blame, basically. So what can I say about blame? I do think that we're in a phase where the social norms are kind of up in the air, and it's not clear to everyone where they are, and some people are acting like it is clear, and we just need to educate everyone, but that's not quite true. We can see that the norms have changed over time, and they're still changing. One thing that we should keep in mind is that there's going to be, wherever the norms are or end up, there's going to be a margin where people can have bad experiences and get hurt even though nobody did anything wrong, right? There's going to be an area sort of in the middle where everyone did follow the rules and did what they were supposed to do, but they still had a bad experience and got hurt, because that's just how it is. You can't have something where if anyone gets hurt, it's going to be someone's fault, because that's going to be too dangerous. No one's going to be able to do anything in that case, because it's too easy to get hurt, and no one will take the risk that they'll get blamed for it. So we're going to have some tolerance for that. I mean, all this stuff about men and women and our roles in dating. I mean, we're talking about every little thing here. Communication is important, but it's very easy to say to someone, just communicate and be honest and talk about everything. We all know that that's very difficult, and it's especially difficult when your partner is not doing it, right? Being the only one who's willing to be direct and communicate. When your partner is like, I don't want to say anything, I just want to like smile nervously and let you make all the decisions, then that makes it really hard. So and even if your partner is communicating, it's still hard to do it. It's, everything we see, all our like we kind of get our initial training for this from like movies and television, right? Where two people just look into each other's eyes and without a word, they just fall into the bed and start fucking, right? That's how we see it in the movies, and that's kind of how we're initially trained to do it. And obviously that doesn't really work very well in real life. And it's actually kind of risky because you could, do that and find out, well, I didn't really want to do that, but I didn't know how to say anything. So we're learning how to actually talk about it is easier said than done, which doesn't mean we shouldn't try to do it, but it's tricky. There's a lot of weird dynamics in there, and we can't just ignore that. We can't just ignore our instincts and our training and everything that pushing us away from that. So yeah, I rather than just saying like you must communicate, I'd like to talk about like how do you communicate? How do you do it in a way that's practical and people can actually do it, and you can do it even can help your partner do it, and where it's sexy, right?
Oh, that's a excellent course of discussion here, but it is so in depth. It's something that we can't cover entirely on the very little bit we have.
Why not?
Here
Let's do
on
it
the Prime Kai panel
right now.
Because again, it's just so different. I think one of the most important things to do though is, like you said, to recognize when communication isn't actually happening, when the person isn't actually telling you what they actually think or feel, and that it can be hard to recognize, but there are certain cues and certain clues that most people, and this is again where it gets dicey because not everyone's going to act in this way, not everyone's going to engage with this in the same way, but there are things that we can generalize to a degree. But again, there's danger in even that, because everything is happening on such an individual basis here that it's hard to have clear-cut, fast like guidelines for how to better communicate. And that is why I think that you have to spend time with someone, a significant amount of time with someone, before you're able to successfully communicate with them. I'll give you a nod. This works in non-sexual relationships too. Like when I first started coming on Prime Kai, I felt that I wasn't being heard. I wasn't able to voice my opinion in the way that I wanted, that I felt understood. But now, after doing this for months and months, I feel that Prime actually does, for the most part, understand what I'm trying to say when I make these points.
The cut.
Yeah.
You did it over, and now people listen to you.
Maybe that's true too. It's all about presentation as well.
You went the Breaking Bad route.
But that's important, right? Like that's important to know that it could take months to develop a relationship with someone where you can actually communicate effectively, and to ignore that, and to act as if like that you could just instantly, as last username was saying, that media and things we see where we just instantly know that we suddenly, oh, we knew that was the one. That's such an insidious thing, and the media portrays this because it's romantic or whatever, but it's caused so many problems in how we deal with each other on a sexual basis.
What's the reward? What's the reward? You guys, like last username and you talked about like the level of effort. The level of effort that's necessary.
Okay, so
it seems like a mutual level of effort on both sides. But once again, like I was saying, like it feels like a
to be able to
relationship.
be heard. Let me answer you then, wee wiggle.
Yeah.
Like to me, and this is for me, to feel heard is a very important thing to me. And when I meet someone and I am able to develop a relationship where I actually feel that they understand me and hear me, is very, very. It's good. It's something I want. It's something I desire. Like casual stuff, like just getting my dick wet, okay, whatever. But it's that I find most rewarding.
So we'll go to Ashley next. I just wanted to shout out to Dewey, what Dewey was trying to say. I think it was actually pretty persuasive. What he's trying to get across is that like the onus is on men, like and working off of both what Doobie and Wick said, it's very difficult because of like the trauma that people are coming into, not just women but also men, right? There people, you don't realize it, especially at the very beginning, but this person is coming in with everything, right? Like all their past baggage, and that is with you in the bedroom. It's invisible, right? An invisible crowd, but it's all there with you. and that affects how they respond. And so, like people who like freeze up and can't say no, right? Or just say yes because they want to please you. Like they've been told like you need to be able to please your partner. And so just say yes, and they may say yes in a convincing manner, but even then, still, they don't actually want to do it. Like, it's a fucking minefield as a guy to manage this, right? Like as a person who cares any which way, right? And I'll assume that everyone, all the guys here on this panel care, right? It's a fucking minefield.
Right. I mean, if you just walk up to someone in the street and say, "Hey, I'd like to have sex with you now," that's you're being honest, right? You're being 100% honest. But most people would see that as some kind of like it very easily be seen as some kind of sexual harassment to just say that to a stranger. So it's not as simple as just being honest, right? You have to feel it out somehow. You have to do things to figure out whether they're interested in you before you can move on to just at being honest and saying that, right? So it's not just a matter of honesty. There's more to it than that, and that's what we're not really honest about when we just say be honest. You can't really just be honest.
And I think that we need to also you could maybe this is like toxic masculinity or the patriarch or some shit. But men are also taught that they're supposed to be the aggressive ones. They're supposed to be the ones that are first off approach, but then make the move to try to kiss, then make the move for sex, right? They're supposed to be the ones taking that first step, right? So if you're supposed to be the person doing that, and you do, and the person you're doing that with is giving you mixed messages, or is giving you like just flat out lying to you, which happens all the time too, right? I mentioned a situation on a Stardust channel once where this girl that I'd met up with for like a one night stand kind of thing, and about halfway into this, I decided like I'm not actually interested in having sex with you, so like yeah, I'm just gonna be here for 20 minutes. We'll talk, then I'm gonna take off, right? But then she says something like well just so you know, I'm not sleeping with you tonight, which is a lie. She wanted to have sex with me. That's why we're there. But she said that, and this kind of like kicked off the competitive side of my brain. I was like, okay, well now I need to have sex with you, right? Um, and of course she gave me all the I'm a virgin, all this bullshit, right? That she was not a virgin, right? So these kind of like silly, stupid. We were having sex like 20 minutes later, right? These silly, fucking childish little mind games women play with men, right? Because they want to feel like they're putting up some resistance and they're being like a good girl. They're not being a whore, whatever the fuck, right? And they like put up little walls that they want men to break down. But how are you supposed to know that as a guy when someone's putting up like a false wall and when someone has like an actual wall? Like it's extremely difficult to tell the difference a lot sometimes. So I don't know. I think we're putting too much onus on men here. There's obviously problems with this. This is why they, if you were to look at the stats, right? Violent crime, rape, mostly men commit these things. The reported violent crimes, sexual assaults, and whatnot, mostly men. But I think we all acknowledge when a lot of times when men are sexually assaulted or physically assaulted by women, they don't report it. So who knows what that number is? Yeah, I think we need to be way more like, way more balanced in how we approach the topic, and I think typically people aren't balanced at all.
For me, it's about that balance. It's about the fact that they say communication. Like Wick gave his answer, and it's a great answer of like what you get out of having like a communication in a relationship, and it works both ways. And you're talking about this reward, but we also have to acknowledge that men in America are under far more stress than female presenting individuals in America, male presenting masculine presenting individuals. It's true. Like the suicide rate, the amount of violence that's done, men that go to like prison rates, etc. Like at the end of the day, if you're a female presenting individual in America, you're gonna get more aid. You're going to get more aid. It's just guaranteed. You're gonna get more.
Women can
aid
go to spas to
you're
relax,
born.
and men can't do that.
So it's like the reward is the same, but the stress is more on men in society. So it's like, why can't there be? Why can't we ever talk about why can't there be more onus on women for the communication? Why is it 50-50?
Oh, it's Ashley.
So-
She wants to communicate right now.
I don't think you're wrong in saying that there's problems with like culture around women in our society, right? I want to start out by saying I don't disagree with you, but I think that there is a major prevalence of in our culture of I can't say the word, but a subset of men shows this very well. But yeah, I think that men feel very entitled if they get with a woman to sex. There's actually someone in Prime Chat that I can quote here. It's crazy that women go straight, I can't say that word on Twitch, if they get abandoned or leading on a man and not having sex with them. Actions have consequences. And I think that this is a common opinion that men have, where women owe them sex in a relationship, and that's their prize for being there. And I think that that's a difficult thing to talk about. But I think that like how we begin talking about that is that like yeah, women are people too, right? Like they're not just objects of sex. And I think that there's a large community of people that think that they are kind of just objects for sex.
Okay, and if you are a sexual object, that is not something that you want, but that guarantees you certain things that men do not have. It guarantees you that you'll always have a place to stay, that your government will care more about you. We live in a patriarchal society where people value sex objects. As a man, you're not even that. At the end of the day, if you don't have money to provide, you don't have these things, you will be the person that's
But
homeless
what if you're
outside.
not able to provide sex? Then you're just as bad as a. Then you're in the same spot as a man.
If
by
you're
your
unable
own
to
definition.
provide, if you're in a position where you are unable to provide sex, you're now talking about like what percentage of the population?
What do you mean? Because a sex object implies like
Well,
in order to be a
you
sex
don't
object,
want
Let's say
to,
not
have to be
willing.
right?
Let's say not
to you.
willing.
Yeah. Why do you
Yeah.
why should somebody consent to being an object, even if that being an object is giving them all of these benefits?
You shouldn't. You shouldn't have to. It's the idea that in that position, you're not signing up, but you're in a situation where you're viewed as a sex object, and then you're only talking about the negatives of this and none of these tiny positives, whereas men don't even have that. So it's like in that sense, like men, you're not even a sex object. You're not a sex
I
object.
really don't want to
You
turn
have to
this
work
into
to
a
become a
men
sex
versus
object.
women thing. I really
I
don't. I
am.
think that'd be unproductive.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to like, well, men have it harder or women have it hard. I think we can ignore all that. I think that's unhelpful. I think we just get straight to the fact that in both cases, in all cases, better communication and we can talk about what that looks like as list username said helps. This helps solve the problem in a way that just advice does not. And it
Once again, men are ignored
The
by
only
their
time we
own.
don't want to talk
By-
about scoreboards is
Um,
whenever
what are you
you're
so-
on
talking
the
about?
women's
I think-
side.
So
I'm
if
not
I can
ignoring
if
it.
I can if I
Like,
can just
who wants
chime
to
in
talk
here,
about who has it worse? We always
I
talk about who has it worse.
there's a reason. So I've been trying to push girls who were younger than me to start making like the first move, right? And and to when they see somebody, they like to practice like going and making that move, right? Even that is like, and even getting rejected, right? And I always like push younger girls and me and younger friends. You know, I think that it's super important to realize that you can exercise like this will, right? It's like unfathomable. It's interesting how unfathomable it is to you until you realize you have the choice to do certain things, right? Especially coming from certain like subcultures, right? Certain subcultures are even more backwards than as far as like women's places and even when you're allowed to speak or make noises, you know. So I think part of it is I think it is important to start trying to level the playing field, but even if we can't level the playing field 100%, I think that there's a way we can still work towards better communication, even if this balance is off with somebody being slightly more objectified than the other person, even if this balance is off with like somebody being having to be more of the aggressor in these situations, or not aggressor but initiator, right? Obviously we can try to level it and encourage women to be initiators more, but I think there's going to always be some sort of imbalance and we just need to like work through figure out how to like communicate through that, right?
So
If you initiate, you got to
I wanna-
deal with. We got to deal with
Yeah,
rejection,
no.
right?
Yeah, and I actually want to combine something you and Last Username said. So Last Username talked about like why don't we like look into those norms now? Like why don't we come up with that, right? So I'll take your challenge, damn it. So, but what does it actually look like, and like what should societal norms be? Um, how should that be restructured? So, uh, talking about victim blaming, if we are saying that women should have more agency in sexual encounters, right? Which is what Stardust is that way. Stardust is saying, right, that women should have more agency, take control of the things they want, um, and we are saying that there should be good communication all around, right? Well, then, if someone fails to communicate, and their partner was didn't force themselves, right? They on them. They just like the. So there's one partner A, partner B. Partner A is maybe initiating contact. Partner B is hesitant but does not say so, right? So if there is blame or responsibility, however you want to call it, right? Does partner B ever have any blame or responsibility for not communicating? Now, there might be all kinds of reasons why they don't. They exist, but still, you didn't in that situation. So it's like, how should society look at that?
There's absolutely situations like, and this is like maybe a hotter take. There's absolutely situations that women have found themselves in because of something, like because of not speaking up, and that there has to be some level of responsibility for that. That's not that doesn't mean it was okay for the other person. Like the other person doesn't also carry probably the majority of the responsibility in these situations. But there's absolutely situations where people can do something that's crossing the line, and they truly didn't know, and they truly didn't have a way of like, or they for like they didn't catch on to whatever hints you wanted to catch on to. So the second part of that is like um what should a societal norm be? I think that dating can actually be really easy. I don't think you should grow to like people. I think you should date people you like and who like you. Like I don't think that you like the idea of wooing people and getting someone to like you. I think that leads to a lot of bad outcomes because it's really easy to you can tell when the situation works when you're going on a date with somebody and you already kind of like each other because things go way smoother that way.
But okay, Bam, I don't think you addressed my point exactly. I want to hear from we
I
can
did the first
actually.
part.
No, I don't think the first part. I don't think it did.
You said, does
Um,
anyone ever take blame? Does the women ever should take blame for not
yeah, but
communicating?
not in the scenario you put out there. You said like people aren't catching um the messages that you're sending, and people are doing
Well,
things accidentally.
yeah, I'm
So
saying
like,
if you didn't communicate, like you should have some responsibility for that. Like, oh, like they should have known
okay,
because I made a face right. I'm like that.
Well,
Sometimes that's not enough. Like
what does it
okay,
mean
not
all
to
right.
speaking, you should take
communicate?
some blame.
I'm sorry, Ashley.
What does it mean to communicate? I mean, I talked about my experience earlier where I didn't say a word that said no, but it was very clear that I was not into it. I was
It was good
trying.
that guy caught it, but I don't think that like I don't think that
So
that should
if
be a
it had gone
standard.
through, would have been partially my fault, you think, in
Well,
terms of blame?
It's
I'm
hard.
just asking.
Also, yeah, I'll say yeah. I'll say yeah.
Okay.
I'll bite it.
I
So
don't
my
think.
But
take
there
on
was
this would
crying,
be,
man. There was crying. That's like a little bit.
That
yeah,
is
no,
yeah, I
that is
mean,
on the
there's
higher
that
crying.
is
end.
a telltale sale
Yeah,
of
I mean,
Yeah.
like, it wasn't like
but
a.
it
So
wasn't a
subtle.
no.
I think, but no, no. So and I think you're getting to an interesting point there, Ashley, when you say like what does communication mean, right? I think there's being purposely obtuse, right? You can do that, right? When your partner maybe not crying, but is like wincing, right? Like to stop and say, "Oh, actually, I have a story," and I've talked about this before on stream. There was I was with a woman, right? Believe it or not, right? It actually happened. I was very excited, right? Go me. So I was with a woman. This is many years ago. And she we were doing it, and then she started like making these noises, right? I'm like, what is these noises?
Oh
Stop!
yeah, oh yeah.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Never
Don't
again. Never again.
Anyway, so she, she started making these noises, and I didn't understand, right? So I stopped, say, "Hey, like, what's going on, right? Like, everything okay?" She says, "Everything's fine." Okay, I continue, right? And she keeps like making these weird noises, and it sounded like noises she was making previously, right? So I stop again. Hey, is everything okay? Like, are you uncomfortable? Like, can I do something? Do you want to do something different? It's like, no, just keep going. We're fine. and I kept going, and then to a little bit,
He
then
was
then I
queefing.
had to
He was
stop, right?
queefing then.
And she, after the fact, she told me that she was like uncomfortable, like it was, I don't know, something was going on, but like penetration at
The
that point
angle
felt
was off.
painful, right? I don't know what it was, right? But like she didn't like it. But like I specifically asked, I stopped and I checked in, not once but twice, right? I stopped and hey, is everything okay? But then she, in that case, she literally lied to me. But there's other times that people just even wanting to communicate
Yeah.
that, and like where should responsibility lie? Maybe I should have stopped immediately. And I'm honestly exploring this. Maybe I should have stopped immediately the moment where I sensed something was weird, right? But then she said okay. So what? I don't know. So
I can't.
Ashley,
Oh, sorry.
I mean, if someone says
Oh,
don't stop, I'm going to take that to mean don't stop. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't really blame yourself for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Like, I don't
I
know
wouldn't
if
blame
blame
you
is going to
for-
be
I wouldn't-
a useful.
The onus.
I don't think
It was
blame is going to be
don't
useful
stop
in the.
or don't stop.
Yeah, blame. I don't think blame is gonna improve things. Kind of in the middle area where people, there's going to be rules that we should follow, that everyone, and it's important that rules be easily followable and understandable to everyone. And I think, and you can say, if someone breaks those rules, then you blame them. But whenever people are following the rules, like I say, there's still going to be a lot of room to do things badly and for people to have uncomfortable experiences and to get hurt. And I don't think blame is going to be a useful tool in that area to improve that. I think, as long as everyone's following the rules, at that point, it's just a matter of everyone try to, everyone for themselves, basically. You try to be the best, do the best thing to help yourself have good experiences and to not have, and for the other person to have good experiences too, assuming you care about that. But I don't think, putting blame on people in that area is going to help people. Because that's just going to make it more dangerous for people, and people get more scared and they protect themselves, and they don't do things.
So
Ashley, and then we'll go to Stardust and then Wick.
I just wanted to say, Prime, I think in that situation, you did the right thing of asking. I think that a big thing is even if you don't necessarily stop, even just asking for reaffirmation is so big. Cause in my situation, he stopped, so it worked out. But if he had asked me, "Hey, are you okay to do this?" I think I would have said no, but I wouldn't have offered the no myself. I think there's times where even then somebody might feel pressured to say yes, but that's when you have to look for other cues. But I think if there's ever any confusion, the default should be stop and ask. And I think that that's great to do. I think that that's such a great thing that's so easy and causes so much less confusion. And yes, the onus might be, or it might push somebody to have to step up to do that, but I think that's very important.
Thank you. Stardust and then Wick.
Yeah, I don't think so I think that these situations are very complicated, and I wouldn't blame yourself for that. I don't know that I would even blame the other person in that situation either, because it seems like they maybe, I don't know, they felt some sort of pressure inside them or something. I don't know. I can't really say. For anybody to blame you for that, Prime, would just be dumb, but I think that's also really really interesting story that you bring up, because we talk about how often how often women are pressured to even I don't know, lie about during the experience, right? And so it's a norm that we should probably work on breaking.
Wick.
yeah, so a couple things to touch on here. And the first one I want to do is the importance of being a self-advocate. You are the most important advocate for yourself that you have in any of these situations. If you feel uncomfortable, if you are not okay, if you are not having a good time, if you want something that is not being provided, it is important that you at least do your best to communicate that to all involved. That is an important skill to learn and have. And I understand that trauma, and because of events, and because of social pressure, and because all these things, that is easier said than done. But I think that this is an important skill for every single one of us to develop. And I think empowering women and men both to be self-advocates is something that we should as a society be doing. We should empower people so that we're there when they are in a situation which they find uncomfortable, they don't say, oh no, don't stop, or just keep going, that they communicate it and they feel fine doing so. I know we're not there yet in society, there's a lot of reasons, but we need to get there. We have to, or else we're going to continue to have these problems. That said, there have been times when I've been in an encounter where I wasn't having the best time. I was like, ah, but I cared about the person and my partner enough, and I wanted to give them pleasure, and so I continued to do so, and that's okay too, because that's not a knock on me or the partner in that situation. That's just how relationships sometimes work, and that's okay. But when you are not okay with it, you have to you have to have the ability to communicate that in some way, or else it's going to be a very bad day.
Wait,
Go ahead.
I just want to ask, have you ever had somebody that weighs nearly double your weight on top of you
No.
in a sexual encounter?
No.
It is extremely scary to stand up to that.
I understand that.
And it's not even about self-advocacy. It's not even about necessarily trust. It's in that moment that's really scary. You feel very trapped, and it feels very
just
traumatic.
because something is scary. If
Choose
I'm
shorter men, short kings.
Situation
Short
where I
kings
have
rise
been
up.
scared, where I
Well,
have been
I think
scared, and
I
just
think there is
let me answer
still
the
self.
question,
Oh,
please.
sorry.
Let me answer the question, please. Where it's not been a sexual situation, but I've been absolutely been where I have feared for my life, where I knew if I'd said anything or I did anything that bad things might happen. But even then, it is important for me to be able to communicate, and I had to communicate. But otherwise, the bad thing, would have happened. I had to speak out and say, I am being assaulted and attacked, and I need help.
Just add, to say the magic word. Just add, please. Just be like, stop, please.
I mean, I think again, here's the thing: is that like I don't know if like this person, you know, I can't speak on this situation, but when you you want to give people practical advice about again engaging in these encounters, right? And some of that practical advice is going to be like you have to be aware that there is a risk that that this that this could turn badly, right? And once you've accepted that risk, if you're in that moment, I think I mean at least you're informed, right, that this was the risk, right? It's not an ideal situation, but there should be, at least when you advocate for yourself, you've tried something, you know. And it's easier said than done. 100% it's easier said than done, but um there needs to be some communicate. We need to improve communication somehow.
Stardust
This
and
goes back to
Ashley.
No.
Stardust and Ashley, you were, and I'll go to you next, Bam. You were basically talking about power imbalances, and it works in multiple ways, right? So this is why, like, when I was talking about the responsibility or the blame or the onus or whatever term you want to use, right? Assigning that to women for not communicating is difficult because oftentimes, not all the times, but oftentimes, they come in a situation where their partner is, more physically capable than they are, and so like,
But that's gonna be
I mean,
all.
huh?
Look, that's good. That's going to be in most relationships where there's a man and a woman. Men are just naturally a little bit bigger than women. They're naturally going to be a bit stronger, right? That is something that like you accept in engaging in any of these relationships. So yeah, you do have to at a certain point be comfortable enough to say something. And just let me finish. I promise I'll be quick. Especially in like that's why like we talk about these like people that you don't know well enough, right? Hopefully when you engage in something with these people that you don't know very well, you still feel confident enough to say something to them, right?
Yeah, but I'm just acknowledging that I'm acknowledging like biology, right? And I'm acknowledging what Ashley is trying to communicate to us.
Yeah.
That this can be terrifying, right? Like you saying that that's something that you got to accept. Well, sure, yeah, that's if it's a casual situation, or maybe not, all right, even a long-term situation, you've already accepted that, it's already baked in. But still, in that moment, there's a person who's doing something to you that you may feel uncomfortable with, and you in that moment are intimidated. And the only point that I was going to bring up with this is that that works on multiple levels. So it's not just being physically intimidated. There's all kinds of power imbalances, right? Like economic imbalances, status imbalances, right? Like you could be a man, and you could have a boss who's pressuring you for sex, and then like a woman, and you could end up doing it, right? And be uncomfortable, hate the whole thing. But look, it is what it is, right? Like you gotta you're making the same choice that a lot of other women have made in the past, right? When it's been a woman to a male boss, and that can happen the other way around. It's a power imbalance, right? Economically, if someone has more money, right, and you're reliant on that person,
Women
you
more
do what you got to
often
do.
seek women more often seek power imbalances. It's like women
Hey,
are more
I
often
appreciate
likely.
it, Paulo. Thank you.
Women are more
What?
often likely. It's 100% true. Women are
Okay,
more
I want to
often
respond to
likely.
Prime real quick.
Okay,
That's
okay.
a whole other take.
They
Ash,
look for men that have like certain credit scores, certain amount of money, certain assets, certain things they can provide more often than men do.
Okay.
I'm going
never
full
looked
wig
for
style.
credit
I
scores.
I
I
respect it. It's true.
understand.
I didn't know you were going wig style.
I just want to respond to Prime real quick. I do think that women should get more comfortable asserting their boundaries in those situations. I do want to be clear. I do think that that's important. But I also think that we always have to tell men in these situations, hey, consent isn't just a yes. It's not like ask questions while you're going through it, right? I think that's an important
Oh,
thing. that, like,
absolutely.
yeah. But
Absolutely.
I'm not
Let
denying
finish.
that women should assert boundaries too,
Well,
right?
what
I'm
is
just
it?
also saying that like in certain situations it can be very scary, and like I think that yeah, we should teach women to be better about that, yeah, like myself included. But I also just think that like men that ask questions, men that stop and make sure it's a very good habit to get into. And I think it's very healthy.
Well, but what are you
And also,
like? You have to set some boundaries at some point. What are you obligated? Like, you can't always just assume that maybe this person I'm with might want to say no but is afraid to. So I just ask them constantly, and if they
I mean, yeah, if there's anything that would make you doubt that, then just ask.
well,
think
but
It's
no,
a 2-second
no.
thing. It's, hey, are you cool with this? Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I think those things are good. I don't think that those things can be the standard. I think the last thing we need in society is to put more of the power in sexual, like in the sexual dynamic, in men's hand. Like,
I'm just saying,
men
ask
don't need.
questions.
But I'm saying you're giving men more responsibility, and
But
this is
that's a
like
necessary
this.
Yeah, there's a difference between
Like, I agree
saying
with Lex
No,
with this.
but
That's
it's not.
necessary.
It's not a necessary thing.
You don't think so?
No, it's a good thing, but it can't be the standard that a man that doesn't ask every 2 minutes is now like.
Well, we're
a
not talking
rapist.
every 2 minutes.
But
well,
that-
aren't you? I mean, I don't know.
disagree.
It's
But-
it's not
but-
clear what you're
Wow.
talking about.
But I'm saying that like we're removing women's agency. Like and the only reason I'm saying this is because we're talking about adults. If like one of the standards to be in an adult relationship should be like, oh, like if you're someone's like, I don't really think I can speak up. I'm not that type of person. Like the moments get awkward, blah blah blah. Like if you're this type of person, then you don't need to be in a relationship. You don't need to be having sex. This is just this speaking to adults, because there can be a standard we hold to adults too. But like saying that like, oh, you know what, like some women are going to be like that. So men, this is the new added thing, the next responsibility you have to do. Not
Why
only
is
you
this
have to
too
get the
much?
initial
Okay,
consent.
okay. I really want to.
But I'm not saying
it's
it's I'm not saying it's too much. I'm saying that can't be the standard. The standard has to
Why
be
can't
some
that be
bare
the
minimum
standard?
threshold, because women have to do nothing then,
No. To say to men
but
or
exist.
to women that, and I'll say this to both. It's not just to men that I'm saying this. I'm saying people, human beings. Check with your partner every now and again to make sure they're okay with what's going on.
I'm a
You are
Barbie
taking it as
girl
if I'm
in a
just
Barbie
speaking to
world.
men here, but
Ashley
I
is
am
just speaking to men.
absolutely
Whisk,
not.
Actually,
Well,
Whisk,
I'm
if I
speaking
don't
from my
if I don't check with my
experience. I'm
partner
speaking from
and then
my
I find
experience.
out,
Let me continue. Obviously, every relationship's going to be different. Obviously, as you grow in a relationship, you're going to learn to communicate in nonverbal ways as well. And sometimes you'll be able to do that, and you won't need to check in, but some do. There's been some relationships I've been in where I absolutely had to check on a regular basis, not every 2 minutes. And it gets annoying sometimes when I do this because I've been told I check too often sometimes, and they say, "Stop it! You're annoying me. Chill the fuck out. Just go with it." And that's fine. Then I respect that. But in especially in new situations, especially in new relationships, it is not by any means whatsoever taking agency or power away from women to tell men, hey, check every once in a while. Because I tell women the same thing too.
When you say that,
I tell women the same thing too.
Wick, when you say that, what are you actually saying? Are you saying you must check, or are you saying it would be a nice thing for you to check, but you don't have to?
I already said, obviously, in certain relationships, it's not a must. But in new ones, and ones you're not clear of, and when you haven't learned to communicate entirely yet, absolutely.
Yeah, there's
a
risk you take.
We're not having.
Yeah, there's a risk you take when you go, and if you're okay with that, if you're okay with that risk that you're going to violate someone's consent,
that's not the conversation we're having. You're saying that a guy that didn't check in is not like you're saying that if you
that's
don't
what
do
you're
that, you're a rapist.
saying. I'm saying, but that's not.
I'm asking you that.
Can I maybe like
let me be clear.
a little bit?
Let me be clear, just real quick. Let me be very clear. When you don't do this,
it's the guy's fault.
Sometimes nothing bad will happen. Sometimes no consent will be violated. Sometimes it'll be a-okay.
Sure, but if it goes wrong,
there is a risk. There is a risk, an absolute risk, when you don't do this, that you will unintentionally violate someone's consent, that you will violate someone in a way that you did not intend to do. So if that is something that is important to you, then you absolutely should take this step.
But whose responsibility is it? Is what I'm saying.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it does matter. It absolutely fucking matters.
It
matters.
That's whose fault it is. Or
it matters. Just bite the bullet and say it's on men.
Of assigning blame. Why are we fetishizing this assigning blame?
But you're assigning blame. You are assigning blame.
Be responsible for yourself.
Just bite the bullet and say that men have to take the blame there.
When you say violating someone's consent, that sounds an awful lot like a blame, right? Like normally, if someone said that I was violating someone's consent, I would take that to be an accusation. You know,
you're the one
saying that it's going to happen absolutely if you don't. But what I'm saying is that, and do you disagree with this? That there's a very real risk if you do not do this that you might violate someone's consent.
I would not consider that violating someone's consent. I would consider it maybe not. Maybe my partner was not having the best time and there was something I could have done proactively to make them have a better time, but I would not call that violating their consent. I think when you call it violating consent, you're definitely implying that there's a blame there.
I don't think that it can happen.
You did something bad.
Last Tuesday, I want to be very clear. So you don't think that it can happen?
What can happen?
That's not the
issue. That's not the issue.
I don't call that.
I'm asking last Tuesday.
I don't call what you described, where you're having consensual sex, and then because you didn't ask them, do you still want to do this? And they suddenly decided they didn't, but they didn't say anything. Then that means you're violating their consent. No.
How do you know it's still consensual unless you ask?
But I'm saying,
they didn't. I think it's up to them. If you're having consensual sex and they suddenly decide they don't want to, it's on them to say, I don't want it to stop.
They should. I'm absolutely saying they should, but they don't always.
But that's okay. But then if they don't, I'm not going to take. I don't feel responsible for that if they don't. I might feel bad, but I'm not going to take the blame for that. Right?
In the sexual situation, should probably be asking to make sure that's cool to do that, or like.
But we say should probably. You have to be very clear when you're talking about blame. It's either blame or not, right? You can't just say you should.
Still wants to do it. So
hold on. This is really important because the thing is, what we have to. Hold on. The reason why it's important to clarify this because I want to know if we're also saying that a woman who like is a situation that doesn't speak up, she's increasing her, like she's likely to be sexually assaulted, and she has to take the fault in that. And I don't think we're saying that. So we can't say the opposite. We can't say a man who doesn't check in.
Things are starting to link up here. Things are linking up here. They're saying all right, well, men like we choose men that happen to be taller, happen to have like more money or what have you in most situations. What? This is just happenstance. Then when we're in these relationships, let's not talk about that. But like once we get in these relationships, men are more likely. Men are more in these relationships more likely to be stressed. men are more likely to progress sexual instances in America, and then they go like, well, men, they're the ones that have to check in this, and then this, and anytime we talk about that, then it's like, why are you talking about men? Why are you talking about men? This is not about. It's about everybody in society. It's like, why? Like you wanted to have the conversation, you want to talk about communication. At the end of the day, how come it's just your communication? It's just your communication.
Okay, so I love silencing women just like anyone else, but like at some point we have to let Stardust talk. So Stardust, please.
Thank you. So I think one thing I would say is that like um I don't think that we are going to level the playing field completely ever, right? I don't think that women and men should be treated exactly the same. I'm just gonna be like straight up like on average like men are stronger, right? They are on average going to be bigger, right? Even if it's only by a little bit, that increased strength output is enough to like, it's enough to fuck you up, right? I think that it's not a bad thing to acknowledge that there are just going to be imbalances, right? Again, yes, we should try to level the playing field as far as communication goes, but there are just going to be things that are never going to be equal. And I'm not really sure what the solution is there.
Well, like what specifically?
Like
Like you said, we can't be equal in communication. Sorry.
No, communication, that's why we need to try and equal it in communication, right? That's why we need to try and equal it in communication. It's just, I think that currently women are socialized to be pretty agreeable, right? And that's why I'm trying to push for women to be a little bit less agreeable. But
Why can't it be the opposite? In that scenario, then like, why can't women be the individuals that communicate far more if it leads to good results? If women
I'm not
are
sure.
communicating
I
far
don't know
more
what
than
the
men.
solution
Can
is.
I
That's the
clarify my
thing.
position?
Well, yeah. Let me just like, I guess I'm having trouble articulating what I'm trying to say. I just think that I think at a certain point we need to accept that there are going to be imbalances and kind of like fuck, I don't know where I'm going with this actually. Yeah, just go ahead. Just
Ashley.
Okay, so I kind of started this, and I just want to clarify because Bam made a point that I want to clarify. I'm not saying that this is a woman exclusive thing. It's just that I was saying in the moment because my experience was with a man, right? But I think if you're non-binary, if you're a woman, if you're a man, right? I think that in general, the person progressing the sexual encounter, right, should like not like I think that like we should teach people that yeah, if you're gonna progress the sexual encounter and you're getting vibes off, it's not like I wouldn't prosecute someone for rape if I never said no, right? Like I wouldn't do that. But at the same time, I think that like to engage in like healthy sex, maybe like if you get a vibe, if somebody's crying, if somebody's flinching, like yeah, maybe like and this goes for anyone. This could be a woman doing this that like let's say you're really uncomfortable with that type of sex. Let's say you're not good with oral sex and a woman starts going for oral sex on you, right? Like she should probably ask if it looks like you're not enjoying it, you know? It's not a man specific issue. It's not a gender specific issue. I think that's an issue of just like progressing.
I want to piggyback off this because I think again we're turning this into a men versus women thing again when it doesn't have to be, and we don't need to do this. When I say these things, I'm not saying men only or women only or who bears most responsibility, men or women. I think both partners bear responsibility in this. I think both partners, and when I say like I wouldn't advocate for like legal punishment to be brought against someone who doesn't check in, the partner didn't communicate, and something happened and one person was uncomfortable. I'm not advocating for any legal punishment to happen here. What I am advocating for, what I'm trying to get people to understand, is that communication in a sexual relationship is very, very important on both ends, from both sides. That every person involved needs to be able to communicate their wants, needs, and desires, and that takes time. And that takes effort and that takes energy. And yeah, it's scary sometimes, but we need to do it.
We know
We
that.
need to do it
we get
regardless.
that.
Yeah,
Because
but
the
that what is
only
I agree.
solution.
I think
Let's end it on
the
that.
contention here is
that's
over
such a-
blame, and I don't know. I don't understand when you say you should do this, you should communicate, blah blah blah.
There's multipliers.
Are you saying that? Are you bringing blame into that? Or are you just saying, if you want to have the best sex, then you should communicate. But if you don't have the best sex, you don't communicate, then it's nobody's fault.
That's relationship. And when again, when we talk about blame, what are we saying? Are we saying legal action?
No.
Like,
but no,
yes,
I'm talking about blame. There's a
So,
definite
I'll be very clear.
distinction between blame and not
try.
blame, aside from the
Let me
law,
try
right?
this. When a relationship, a person in a relationship fails to communicate, they have some responsibility because they're failing to communicate.
But
Simple as that.
But what if both people
Okay,
fail to
that's
communicate?
so bland. And
They
it's
both bear responsibility.
So they're
it's
both
like-
to, but it doesn't make sense. They can't both be
Yeah,
blamed.
why doesn't? Why
If
can't-
they're
that
both
can't
to
be
blame,
anything.
then neither of them are, right?
because you
The
need
point
to-
of
That's not
blame
true.
is that
What?
It's
No.
how much blame? How much? It's like if I punch you in the face and then you stab me in the gut and then say both of us are to blame. Well, what then next? What's next? It's like just like Stardust was saying when I posed this earlier, they gave the answer like there are differences. You have to acknowledge that there are differences. And so we have to discuss different consequences, different actions because there are differences. You can't just say, well, it's the same. Everyone needs to communicate, but then
I think
what are
everyone
the
can
differences
get
in
better.
communication?
I just think it's a really I thought we were going to be done, but I think it's something that's really weak that people say on these conversations, and it's not intentional, and that no one's like I don't think it's like coming from like a bad faith perspective. We say things like we say that like like I'm not talking about men, I'm talking about women, I'm just talking about people who initiate, but we understand in the society we live in that's meant like in the vast
Generally, yes.
majority of cases. So we're getting around. We're trying to be. We're saying we're being inclusive, but we're really not. What we're prescribing is only going to apply.
Okay. All right. So I do want to. I'll give Ashley the last word. We
'cause that
went
wasn't
way
really
over
asking
time for
anything.
this one. Though I there's still more to cover, right? Like this is really just, and I actually really want to deal with something Wiggle said earlier. But I don't have time. Maybe Wiggle come on the open. But Ashley, want to let
Oh,
you last
I was
word?
gonna respond to what Wig said before.
Wiggle, you can go ahead. They won't be able to respond to you. You can just dunk
Oh
on
no,
them
no,
if you
no!
want.
I'm not gonna do that to Wiggle.
No, don't do it.
Awesome.
No,
Do
No,
it.
I'm not.
Do it.
I'll respond
Awesome.
I'll respond to Bam. Hey,
take a nice
Bam,
big dump
Bam.
on him.
Hey, Bam. I have since moved off demisexual, which is pansexual, weird. But anyway, I've since become just a straight up lesbian, and I've started only dating women, and I've had these encounters in a very similar means with like women. So I think that yeah, it does just kind of depend on who's the initiator. I think that you can have in lesbian relationships, I usually am having a woman advance on me, and yeah, I think that that's just it depends on the gender of the partner that's advancing. I think that either gender can do that.
That's
So I
fair.
think that's
Okay. All right. So we'll move on to our next topic. This is super interesting, and again, I want to argue about it some more. Okay. So and also just quickly, guys, if you're enjoying this content, hit that follow button. If you happen to be new here, right, just wandered into the channel, right, what are they talking about, right? If you like this, be so kind, hit that follow button right now. Make sure notifications on. So I'm going live. We do this 7 nights a week. 7 nights a week. We we are around. So we want you to be a part of this. Hit that follow button. And follow us on social media. Make sure it's social and chat. For our social media, we got Twitter where we tweet things, right? And we got Discord, Heart and Soul of the Community. We do everything in Discord, including open panel. We'll have right after this. Check out open panel. And then, of course, YouTube is where we all post. If you miss any of this, check out our YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, and consider becoming a YouTube member. Hitting that join button, supporting us that way. It helps out a ton. Okay, great. I've gotten really good at saying that really fast. So we're going to go to our next topic. We only got about an hour for it. So guys, for intros, keep it snappy. Keep it snappy. So we're gonna move this along, all right? I can't snap. I can't actually snap when I'm saying that. Okay. Let's go. During the BLM protests, police brutality was brought front and center. The nation grappled with what exactly should be the extent of police powers. However, the opposite was really discussed. How far can civilians go to defend ourselves against the police? Should you be able to punch an officer? What about draw a rifle on them? What implications does this have for the rule of law? Again, credit to Stardust for being so helpful with coming up with that last night. So let's go to Bam for our first big statement.
It was kind of crazy. This question came up because I was actually like a villain on the panel for this take in the past. But yeah, I believe that there obviously I don't think the citizen should be able to attack a police officer. Like this for the state to function, they have to have a monopoly on violence. But like the concept of people like making physical efforts to escape, so that means like running away, and that means like the other things that come with running away, as if like if the cop, it's not a game of tag, if the cop grabs you, you might throw him off, you might punch him. Like these can be extra charges, but I don't think this justifies like, oh, okay, now we can murder him because we're like scaling up the crap. I don't know, this was a big fight thing, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
Wick.
Okay, so there are like very niche circumstances where I think that in these very extreme cases that you might be, I would advise you to, yes, fight against the police, but they're very rare, and so very extreme that I don't think they're worth talking about. Even if you feel morally justified, and even if you are morally justified in trying to punch a police officer or draw a gun on a police officer, even if you feel 100% in the right, even if you are, doing so is never a good idea. They will kill you. They will beat the shit out of you. You will go to jail. You will suffer the consequences. You will make things worse for yourself. So again, regardless of whether you're morally justified or not, do not do this, gang. It's a bad idea.
Wick. Or Wiggle, sorry. I
yeah.
can't tell the difference.
This just look the same.
Yeah, so if a police officer like hits you in the fucking face, you should be able to hit them back in the fucking face. You should be able to do those things, but you can't. And because you can't, and that's the nature of this agreement. There should be more restrictions on like police. That's about it.
Stardust.
Right. So I think that in most circumstances, it's a bad idea to use force on a police officer. And I think that's for a good reason. Police officers are meant to uphold the law. They're the ones who are supposed to be able to use force to make sure that other people are safe. There are a few cases where I can see using force may be justified. Great example we all know about is Kenneth Walker and Breonna Taylor. The no-knock warrant that happened, and the two of them, had no reason to know that this is police intruding in their living space. So, like any normal person would do, they tried to defend themselves. And Kenneth Walker was cleared of all charges when he was tried for, I guess, attempting murder on an officer or whatever, because it was reasonable that he was defending himself in his own place. So I think there are very few cases in where this is like acceptable. I think in most cases you should not be able to assault a police officer because it'll usually fuck up a situation. So that this one was just a fuck situation in general. So
yeah. Ashley.
I take Germany's position on this, where they generally say that freedom is a basic human instinct, right? So I don't think that you should be charged for trying to escape or resist arrest. So I would say that in those cases, pushing an officer off, right, or something like that, that wouldn't be necessarily enough for like a full-on assault charge, but just like a minor. I think that you shouldn't ever be charged for trying to resist arrest, but I think you should be charged for anything that you do in trying to, if that makes sense. Like if you cause property damage, if you break through a window or something, I think then yeah, you should be tried for that. But inherently just trying to resist arrest, I think is fine. So I think that like violence to do that, very minor forms of violence to do that, I think.
Did you say freedom is an instinct? Is that what you said?
The law considers freedom to be a basic human instinct. So like if you escape prison in Germany, you won't get time added to your sentence. You'll just have to serve out your full sentence. It's not illegal to escape prison in Germany.
That's actually quite interesting. That's super interesting. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Half baked takes. Can you be that interesting?
I cannot be as interesting as Germany's weird fucking rule that you don't have to. You're not gonna get any. Hey man, try as many times as you want. Doesn't matter. But no. So I guess it's important to say like, yeah, there are certain circumstances where this is accepted, but like Stardust, you brought up the Breonna Taylor and
Kenneth
I'm
Walker.
sorry, what's his name again?
Kenneth Walker.
Kenneth Walker. So the reason he ended up getting charges dropped is because it was assumed that it was he didn't know it was the police that were coming
Yes.
in, right?
Mhm.
So like that this argument kind of loses, like we don't even talk about that because it's not really the same thing, because we're saying it was not acceptable for him to shoot at police, but because he didn't know it was police, it's totally fine. We're going to let him off. So other than situations like the Kenneth Walker situation, I don't see it as a good idea for you to pick a fight with a cop, because like Wick said, I promise you they will shoot you in your fucking face before they let you get their gun, and that's just the way it goes.
Let's go to DB.
Yeah, I think no, don't resist police. I don't give a fuck what Germany's doing. Cops have a monopoly on violence. I think that's a good thing. Yeah, don't use physical force against police. Simple.
Okay, last username. Please save me, because like we got a lot of group think here. Last username of the only independent thinker we have around. Please.
Okay, so I took this question to mean, can you violently defend yourself? Can you use force to defend yourself against police? Not just can you attack the police for fun? Obviously, I don't think you should be able to do that. But if the question is, can you defend yourself against police? Then the answer is yes, and you should and you can. There have been cases where people have been acquitted of even killing police because it was justified self-defense. You're talking about the one there. There's another one. This guy AJ Coffey, who was recently acquitted for, I think, killing some officers who were raiding his house. And I think he was even guilty of some crime, but the officer didn't properly announce themselves, and he fired back. And I think he killed one of them or something, and he was later acquitted because they decided, well, he didn't know their
that would
police.
be the same thing, right? Because they didn't announce themselves, so it'd be
the point is it was justified. So yes, you absolutely can do that. Should you do that? Well, I mean, I guess if the alternative is the police are going to hurt you, then maybe you have to. But I think in most situations where this happens, it's where the person doesn't know, where they do a raid. And I think the solution to avoid brutality, though, is not for people to more aggressively defend themselves. It's for the police to less aggressively try to arrest them so that they don't have to defend themselves. So yes, you can defend yourself. I don't think that's like a solution to making the justice system work better. I think the solution is rather to reduce the powers that police have to use force against people. And actually, I support a legal system. Since I support a market legal system where there would be no special right that police have. Everyone would have whatever, the same rights that people who are employed enforcing the law have. And that would include, so you'd have people who had more rights, slightly more rights to defend themselves. Police would have less rights. And I think that's ideal.
So
last username, thank you for making points that I was gonna make. Right, last username, independent
sure
thinker. Right? No, I was okay. Fine, Wick.
So I really want to push back against you on this one, Ashley, because the problem is, and I've seen this happen. I've seen this happen in nightclubs. I've seen this happen on the street. I've seen this happen in a lot of various things. Yes, I understand. Like, there is a natural tendency to try to resist arrest or this thing, but what happens when you do that? When you turn to try to struggle and punch the face, and why I would be dead set against advising anyone to do that, is then the cops will escalate the violence. Violence escalates.
I'm not advocating for people to do this.
I understand.
It's a different
Yeah, the
conversation.
question is, what are the consequences if somebody does it? And I think Ashley's. I like this principle, and I understand it that as long that you should be given some leeway to defend yourself against the police if the police are using force against you. Not infinite leeway, but some for sure.
Stardust has named a few situations where you are. We do allow for these things in very very narrow circumstances.
Probably not enough. Not in America.
And it's a blanket statement to say, oh, you should just be able, when you disagree with what the cop is doing, to violently, and that's a key word here, violently fight against them. I think that's a road.
Fight against them.
But that's the prompt, right?
The thing is,
the prompt.
I'm pretty sure. Someone correct me if I'm wrong.
Clarifying, I mean like very minor violence. And you said you were okay.
Like again, but violence escalates. That's violence. Like it's minor violence.
But what if you're not even escalating it?
Escalates.
Like in America, the police can like tackle you, and if you even like squirm to try to avoid the tackle, you can be charged with assaulting the police officer, right?
Yes.
That doesn't seem very reasonable to me.
And his buddies, once you push him off successfully.
Yeah, but we're not talking about that. We're not talking about whether you should do it with. We're talking about could you be charged with assault just because you fought back when the police initiated a very violent attack against you, right?
Yeah, there's a different conversation, Wick. You're saying you're asking like,
talking about survival.
What would you advise like the person?
Yeah, we're not talking
about
that.
We're talking about right. We're saying that like in cases that it happens, are the police now justified in shooting you? And I'm we're doing it again. We're going 2.0 of this conversation. My example of a case that everyone thinks is wrong is Rashard Brooks. This was involving a guy who was shot in the parking lot of a Wendy's for being drunk in his car, and they got him out of the car and. Basically, they were going to arrest him. He was drunk. He pushed them off. He ended up punching a cop in the face. He went to run off, and they shot him.
He took a taser. He took a taser and shot that taser at the police officer.
That's a really bad faith description. That's a really bad faith description.
It wasn't a bad faith description.
No, that's literally exactly what happened.
Oh, he ran away. They shot him. Come on.
Like I said, and while running away, not even looking back, he fired off a taser. That he didn't like.
I don't care. If you take a cop's taser.
It was in the process of. Hold on, let me just finish. It was in the process of fleeing the scene. They had his car. They had his address. They could have met him at his house. They like literally. I just think that I wouldn't go as far as Ashley to say that there shouldn't be any tasers.
I don't think Ashley even made that.
I'm saying,
he ended up punching one of them in the face. He was like wrestling with them both on the floor for like a long time before he got away. Like what? The way you presented this,
Bam, this is not a great example.
Bad faith
it's an absolute perfect example because the only time we're describing like, oh, if you don't know the cops, or oh, if you lightly push, but this isn't how people escape for their life, especially people who are intoxicated. I might punch you in the face. Like if you reach for your taser, I might grab your hand, and then if I grab your hand, I may grab the taser.
Should there not be consequences for that?
No, wait a minute. No, I'm saying that I'm not. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I'm not going as far as Ashley to say that like, oh, there should be no added charges for resistance arrest, but I'm saying that doesn't meet the threshold of murdering him.
They said that there would be
like taser pass.
No, Ashley said
Ashley
said there shouldn't be a charge for resisting arrest.
Well, I want to clarify my position if you're going to talk about
I'm just saying.
I think that anything that you do that would be against the law in trying to resist arrest, I think is fine to charge you for. Like in that case, yeah, that guy should be charged with assault, right? But like, I think that if you don't really assault somebody and you're just trying to escape a situation, I don't think that should be a charge. I don't.
But what do we think escaping is? Like that's what I'm saying.
We're trying to run away.
But what do you think? How do you think people try to run away? Do you think that means maybe punching someone off, get them off?
This is different. This is different ideas of like the principle that was described, at least from my perspective, was that people have an instinct to want to be free. And they're going to do this regardless of who they are, what skin color they have, and whatever. And so therefore the law is going to work around that, not without that. And so they're describing how well the law incorporates that it's natural for people to do such. It's not anything more than that, at least from my determination.
Bam, like a more sympathetic case is like the Walter Scott case in South Carolina where the guy ran away, had his back turned, and the cop just fucking shot him.
Sure, that's easy though. I don't care about the easy situation. I care about the gray areas, the real life situations that people have.
I
I
would
don't
not
think it's a
call-
gray area when somebody
I would not
uses.
call stealing a cop's taser and then trying to use that taser on a police officer.
No, but no. This is why you're being bad faith. I'm gonna tell you, and this will be real quick. This is why you're being bad faith, because you're describing the situation as if he was aggressing the police officers and not running away. Was he running away? The man was running away.
He was trying to escape, yes.
Well, if it was a rifle or a pistol,
But he wasn't just running
and they were
away.
running away and shooting behind them, would that be different to you, Bam?
Yes,
Okay.
that would be different. That's like a long range question. This is a guy running away. They're chasing
the officer. I'm not trying to suck these cops' dick. I'm just telling you, a taser can incapacitate an officer, and they will treat that weapon the same way that they would treat a lethal weapon every single fucking time.
They're chasing him.
Yes, and he tried to shoot them with a weapon that could incapacitate them. I'm sorry, a police officer is going to treat that weapon as lethal every time. And I know you don't like it, but that's just training, and that's how the shit goes. If that weapon can cause a situation where I lose control of my weapon,
he's escaping. We're not going to describe him as an aggressor. He wasn't an aggressor.
Are you a cop? Half they takes?
It doesn't matter that they're dangerous. It matters if someone's running away, and a rock can be dangerous. But if I'm running away and I throw a rock back at you, it can hit you in the head to kill you. But that doesn't give someone the
Rock
reason
is a beautiful country.
to pick up like they're gonna pull out their gun and shoot you because you threw a rock while you were running away.
Bam, I'm as red as my microphone cover right now, and I'm sorry. I'm not heated at you. I'm just letting you know.
No, get heated. Don't be
you're
a
better
bitch.
like that. You're better like that.
Yeah, don't be a bitch.
Go full baked. Go full baked tonight.
But I'm telling you, I'm sorry. The way you presented that the Rashad Brooks case was just a little disingenuous, man, because he was fighting with the police officers. He got up, he ran away. He tried to incapacitate the officer with a taser. But there's a lot more to that. And they would not have shot that man had he not taken the taser away from him. No. They didn't shoot him when he started to fight them on the fucking ground.
They pulled for their tasers whenever they were fighting them.
That's not a fucking gun, Bam. That's very different.
But what do you think? What do you think resisting looks like in that situation? If you reach and the guy reaches that, like he didn't like, oh, I'm gonna get there. Like this guy's a drunk guy sleeping in the parking lot at Wendy's. If you reach down while we're fighting,
him being intoxicated. Like, look, really quick, Bam. You keep mentioning he's intoxicated. I think that makes the situation more dangerous. This makes the situation more dangerous.
You can't use intoxication as a justification, right?
Yeah.
Like, also, are we talking about should the guy be legally responsible? Versus is it justified to shoot him? Those are not necessarily the same things. I can imagine situations where the police would be justified in shooting someone even though they wouldn't be guilty of whatever it is that's justifying the shooting, right? Because it's dangerous but not necessarily illegal. I can imagine situations like that.
Shooting him. I think if a drunk guy's running away who's not wanted for anything like violent, I think you let him run away.
If he didn't take that taser, it'd be
but if he takes your weapon and shoots it at you,
I still don't think you kill him.
Yes. Taser.
Have you seen the video last username?
Yes, I have seen it.
He's getting shot.
I would like to know, like, last username seems to have a pretty like contrary position, and I would like to know what kind of scenarios would you say are appropriate to use force on a police officer?
So the situations where, when I say appropriate to use force, I mean you're not charged with a crime for using that force. And I'd say there's got to be something where like you can use force that matches what the police use without being guilty of any extra crime, but you can't escalate the force. Like if a cop comes and sort of tackles you, I don't think should be a crime for you to struggle to try to get away from that. If a cop brings your doorbell and says, you need to pay your parking tickets, I don't think and then you punch him in the face, I think you're guilty of assault because you used more force than the cop was bringing to you.
Do you think you should then be able to tackle that cop, the cop who tackled you, if you like wiggled away from him? Should you be able to tackle him?
No, at a certain point, it's going to be you initiating violence. Like you're going to have to, there's going to be some tricky bits, but you got to distinguish between someone just sort of naturally resisting force against them and initiating force when they clearly don't have to.
But last username, you don't like the monopoly on
I don't.
Violence. Okay, so this all doesn't matter, and I would say like most of us in here
What do
are
you mean it doesn't
okay
matter?
with the police's monopoly on violence, as it's.
But I don't see why
typically
that's
the thing
relevant.
that's-
Like this would be true with a monopoly or without a monopoly of violence. I'm just saying
no,
this is
it's
what
100% true because the onus is on the civilian to stop fighting with the police officer and not maintain or escalate the violence in any way.
Yeah.
You're giving credence to maintaining a level of violence with police officers that you, I, and everybody in here knows
Not
that you cannot
necessarily.
do. You
Not
cannot
necessarily.
do.
Actually,
So
I think what
um,
actually I think what last username is doing is saying you can use the same amount of force to get out of that situation, but then once you get out of that situation, you're actually taking the action of disengaging with the conflict, right?
Right.
I'm taking the position of like
so,
I would vote for whatever last username says, but I understand if Half Baked takes if you were a cop, you would kill me in that situation, and so I don't want to die. So like that's why I agree with like the monopoly of violence. But anything that like last username on this would advocate for that could get passed, I would support that. Like I'm not okay with the monopoly on violence.
And
I
to be
just
clear,
think
I'm
if I
only
could- if I could
talking
just
about
ask a question.
what you're legally
Last
responsible
username.
for. Okay, I'm only talking
Swish.
about what you're legally responsible for, like what you could be charged with afterwards. I just don't like the idea that people are charged with an extra assault crime just because they resisted arrest when the police
You know, but
initiated
what are
the
the- what are
violence,
the-
right?
So
you and
go-
Ashley are basically on the same page with this
Yeah.
then.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So Wick and Doobie, then I do want to jump in here.
Okay.
Because
So-
I'm disagreeing as well.
Sure. So one of the reasons that I think that we should not take away the extra assault charge in these cases is because one of the things that we can do as a society, and it's not a perfect tool, but it is a tool we can use, and one that works, is we can provide laws that disincentivize people from taking certain actions. And we want to, as a society, on the whole, disincentivize people from violently or resisting police officers, because we understand that many of the times, like, the police officers are trying to arrest someone for a good reason. Not all the time, obviously. I would never say all the time. But in many cases, in many scenarios, there's a very good reason why the police officer wants to apprehend and stop this individual from doing whatever it is they're doing. And to take away this disincentive we have will just lead to more violence, because now when you're resisting arrest and you're fighting back, the police has to use more force to overcome you, and this is going to lead to bad situations. We do not want this to happen.
But I don't think you can just justify a law based only on whether it incentivizes or disincentivizes violence, because I think you have to look at what's fair in some situations. I think it's fair for someone to give some amount of resistance if the police are violently trying to arrest them without taking on any.
What's fair isn't my primary concern.
Well, then you're wrong. I mean, then that's not good.
Why would it be?
Because we don't want to live in a world that's unfair. Fair is important to people, and I think it's probably important.
Well, you can
to
be
you
fair
when
all
get
you
there.
want, but you're going to end up fucking beat to.
What is the
It's fair. It's fair, gang. You know, like what?
So
we
let's go.
accept it? Should we
Well,
accept
so
it?
let's go to Doobie. Then I'll go. Then we'll go to Ashley.
And so I'm just this is kind of for last username and Ashley. Because I'm wondering like well, maybe more or less username, because you keep saying, hey, they can use the same amount of force that the cop is using to escape. What if like you had like a cop who's like out of shape, like, or maybe he's like a short dude, or he's just like pretty weak, or it's like a woman officer, right? And she has to arrest some big dude. And
Do you hear what he said? He said out of shape, weak, short. Oh, maybe it's just a woman.
And a woman,
Okay.
yeah. Look,
Go ahead.
I'm just acknowledging, reality, okay? So, and she has to arrest like a big dude, right? In a situation where it is legal for him to resist with the same amount of force that she uses to try to arrest him, right? Like, aren't you worried at some point you're gonna have like women, like female officers being like overpowered by
For
dudes,
the-
and
for the male officer-
they need to escalate and bring in all the other guys, fucking Connor's goon squad.
Well,
or
they need to
pull
do
a
that
taser to the
anyway,
top.
right?
You have
Like-
to assume that the male
Wiggle,
officer is going
wiggle.
to arrest you.
The question was
And
for
then
me.
for the female
I'm
officer,
gonna be
Yeah, I would
you
like
have
to
to
hear
ask.
last username answer the question.
Yeah, I'm just worried about a situation when we have like female officers being pushed into closets and like locked in there and shit.
I don't think it's a problem
because
because in that situation the female officer should not be trying to violently arrest. If she really doesn't have enough force to stop him, then she's going to be in danger anyway, right? So it's not.
Yeah.
So changing the law is not going to help her, right?
Because right now, if people were to resist that at all, right, they'd get tons of charges on top of the original charge, right? So, but you're saying, hey, now we're in a situation where it's legal to resist, right? To physically resist.
It's not like having that. It's not like having that extra assault charge is going to make it safe for female officers to single-handedly arrest people who are much bigger than them, right? It's still going to be really unsafe. So there's no point in not having that law.
You don't think that these things disincentivize people? Last username. You
will
know,
go to jail. You will go to jail.
Not enough. Not enough to matter. Not enough to make it.
I disagree hard. Where's your data on this?
Okay, I'll let Ashley respond first, and I'll jump in because I want to fight.
Sorry. My position is that like, if you run away from a cop, if you slightly shove them off of you, not like you tackle them, then get up and run away. I would say like, if you're assaulting an officer, right? That's very different. And I'm not for that. I'm not for equal violence against officers. I think officers should have a significant, if not total monopoly on violence. I'm just saying that I think if you run away from a cop, that shouldn't be, oh, you were only going to serve like a small charge and it gets bigger off that, right? Now, in violent instances, yes, I do think that resisting arrest, in a violent crime, yeah, I would agree that, you shouldn't be allowed to do that. But like in non-violent crime, like let's say you shoplifted and then you try and resist arrest, like I think that that's bad, but like you already have the shoplifting charge. I don't think that trying to escape that is inherently something that should be punished.
Yeah, okay, so I'm closer to the last username and Ashley on this one, right? And the same people in the panel. Yeah, so I feel like as Americans, or well, maybe some of you are Canadian. I think Happy take you're a Canadian, right?
Jesus Christ, no.
I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
Okay.
I'm out.
Bringing slurs against your panelists.
I went too far.
Wait.
Your panelists?
Wait, what did I miss? What the fuck?
Oh no,
I'm called this nice young man a Canadian. It's fucking terrible.
Wow.
Might be my fault. Maybe I normalized Canadian hate. I don't know.
Yo, yeah. I'm just like, can you hear how he's talking about the police? How the fuck? Like,
oh, fuck you, Wiggle.
No.
That's where you go.
Okay. Anyway, right. Oh, and the Drakes, thank you for the kind gift stuff. Thank you so much. So I think we've normalized violence here. Violence by the police, right? We have cop shows that show like cops like roughing people up, and that's a good thing, right? That's the hero. That's what they're doing. I've told the story before, but I was watching an episode of Law and Order in which the cops went to a black neighborhood and tossed these guys up against the wall and started searching their pockets, and I'm like, yeah, and the guy said, the civilian said, hey, you can't do this to us. And they're like, no, we can. This is stop and frisk, right? Like, we just do whatever the fuck we want to you. And then didn't find anything. They just fucked off, right? Those are the heroes. And the heroes who, like, in the entire run of the show, had never done that in a white neighborhood, right? Like, or to anyone of power, right? But it's just assumed within that the heroes will go in and they'll use excessive force, right? They'll violate others, a certain type of person. I think we've accepted this in our culture, right? So when I hear people say, "Oh, well, if you do this, a cop will execute you," right? And then just leave it there as if it's a fact of life, like it's some immutable characteristic of the universe that cops can and should be able to execute you. I'm not. Wait. Can and should be able to execute you, like if you resist force. But that should not be the case. That absolutely should not be the case. In fact, we can create a society where it's not. And we've seen videos. You may have seen it yourself, right? Videos of how cops operate in Europe, where people do have deadly weapons in their hands and have actually used them, right? Have proven themselves to be a threat against the public, but still the cops make an effort to capture them rather than just execute them, like they do here. It actually doesn't have to be that way. Like there is a different way to. We don't have to accept that. That's why I hate how this conversation always goes. Well,
There's more guns in America.
The cops are yes.
What are deadly? When you say deadly
it-
weapons, what do you mean though? Prime. What do you mean? Like knives and like machetes and shit?
that and guns. In fact, cops here have done that too, right?
And
There
they've
have been
shot.
there have been white people.
A dude puts out a
shooting at the
machete,
cops.
bro.
There was an
I'm gonna
incident-
steal the
there was an
taser and
There
shoot.
was an incident. So this happens here every so often. There was an incident where a white person was shooting at the cops, right? Shooting at the cops when they came to arrest him, and they still managed to get him alive. There was what was that other incident that I was going to say? Cops have shown the ability to capture individuals who are dangerous when they can. They when they want to, they can actually do that. But we have this idea, this notion here that that violence is to be expected and is to be normalized, and in fact, they're the heroes for doing it. In fact, I say no. I say we should be able to limit the cops, limit their powers, right? And if not that, then again, I'm with last year's name here. If not that much, then yeah, you should be able to resist. And like let's remember, and to Ashley's point, and I'm done. Ashley's point, talking about how these arrests, right? Like they add things on to your arrest for resisting, right? There was a case where a suspect got blood on the officer, and they said they assaulted the officer. That was resisting arrest, and they assaulted the officer because the officer they were beating the civilian, right? And the blood got on them, and that was the case of assault. Of resisting arrest.
The
Holy shit, dude, this is how that
citizen
shit
blood
is.
on me.
I'll be
Ew.
quick. I'll be quick.
This is how that shit is used.
I understand.
Though.
No,
So,
I understand. I understand. But all I'm saying is like cops in America don't shoot people just for, merely wrestling or tussling with a cop. It's when they make no, it's the person has to make a direct action for the officer's weapon for them, or they have to be armed with a deadly weapon.
Stop takes. I was going to say that no one is saying that, but then you just fucking said it. So please stop doing that because it's ruining my point. So let me be very clear. I, and most of us, I would feel on here, are not saying that this is a good thing, that this is a good state of things. But we are saying that it is a state. It is the reality in which we exist, so we have to deal with it as it exists, not how we wish it would be. Yes, I would advocate for taking steps.
I'm talking about odds. No, I said should in the question.
Okay.
Odds.
Okay.
Odds.
I would advocate for taking steps. I'm with you. We should advocate for reducing the violence that cops do to the citizenry. 100%. Let's do that. But I do not think that the taking away resisting arrest as assault charge, I think, is going to do that. In fact, I think it's going to do the opposite. I think it's going to lead to more harm.
A person was going to harm the cops, right? A person is held back. Like, I'm not going to be taken prisoner. They're going to do that any which way, right?
But we're not talking about the
This is the argument that conservatives make.
We're not talking about the extreme cases,
this is the argument that conservatives.
We're talking about
that conservatives make when they're talking about guns. Like, well, criminals aren't going to follow the laws. Yeah, criminals are. Most people, the vast majority of people, when they are arrested, are taken peacefully. The vast majority of them. You didn't have to have a law saying that you can't assault the cops.
If they resist arrest, the reason that's the case, one of the reasons that's the case, Prime, is because they know that if they resist violently, they're going to get extra charges.
Yo, I'm not gonna do this, bro. I'm seeing the man freak out. Y'all just ignoring it, just having the combo, bro. Yo, let him finish his point.
Fucking dude, I get cut off in the middle of the fucking statement, and then like I have two people making a fucking conversation out of my point that I didn't fucking make. Like the Rashad Brooks fucking example from earlier. They fought with him on the ground in a wrestling match for fucking 45 seconds. It took that man to take the taser to run away and deploy it on a fucking cop before that cop was justified in shooting him. Yeah. He didn't just shoot him when he was on the fucking ground. So let's not act like that's what happened. And I'm sorry I'm heated, but goddamn, Wick, Doobie, go. I'm sorry, I got my point across.
So I think Prime, you mentioned earlier, hey, when the police want to take someone in peacefully, they can do it, right? And you can find videos of people shooting at police, and those police managing to get them in, without killing them. That's true, right? But what you said there is, you said a white man shooting at police, but we can find tons of videos right now of black and brown people firing at police officers, walking toward police officers with weapons out, with guns pointed straight at their faces, knives out, and not getting just shot, right? Not getting executed in the street, right? And getting taken in peacefully. I don't think so. There's this implication here that police just like they got like this itchy trigger finger, and it's just waiting for the opportunity to murder somebody. Right? I think it's fucking crazy. Right? I think most cops don't want to kill people.
Jesus
right?
Christ.
It happens when they feel like they're pushed into a situation where their lives in danger, and they need to do it to protect themselves and get back home to their family. I think
People don't have
One thing that we don't talk
major
about
disagreement here.
also.
Wait, really quick. The major disagreement here. Wait, stop. Prime, the major disagreement here, I think that Prime was going to have with at least me, is you seem to think that cops should be like required or expected to put themselves in danger. Right? And even if the danger is, someone taking out a gun and pointing it straight at their face, right? That cop, even though he's in danger, hey, you should talk to that guy.
That's what
you should try to talk him down.
bro.
And I would say, hey, if you take out a gun and point it at the cop, you should get shot. You should expect to get shot. Right?
You should expect to get shot. You should
expect to.
Yeah.
No, I think if someone does that and the cop shoots him, it's totally reasonable. If it's a knife, totally reasonable, totally justified. If somebody trying to take the cop's gun or their taser, totally reasonable for them to be shot.
I mean,
Sorry.
man, like, from my perspective.
Can I just say, we don't know how many cops also die trying to take people and de-escalate, right?
I mean,
I
we
feel like
do
we
know.
would because they have to
We do
report
know.
it. I feel like
It's
we
about 1
would
year.
because they have to report it, right?
Yes, but like her point is nobody ever talks about that, and we only bring up these very small, minuscule. Prime, you shake your head, but there were 19 unarmed black men that were shot and killed in 2019 in a country of 330 million. If you tell me that's a systemic problem, you're lying to me.
Okay. Okay. So this is a completely different other argument, right?
I think there's a systemic problem. I just think that police officers have a very unique.
Let's not go into this because it's a completely other fucking problem, right? It's more than just people getting shot. We're talking about violent apprehension, right? But like whatever, right? If you can't recognize that, that's fine. I can fight you on that later. But that's not what we're talking about.
I agree with Stardust.
Doobie, I hear you, right? Like you're saying, well, cops can take black people by alive too. Okay, I'll give you that, Doobie. Sure, great. But I the part that I reject, that I completely fucking reject, is this idea that the cops only shoot people when they feel that their safety is challenged, right? And even if that's the case, that means that clearly the cops that we have are fucking terrified children. Right, the results that we've seen from them they're complete cowardice, because when you have a fucking cell phone in your hand, they'll fucking murder you. When you have your wallet in your hand, they'll fucking murder you. Right? There's like there is no room for any like not even confirming the danger.
That's probably more or less true.
Some guy wiggles. Some guy follows your orders. He follows your orders. He steps outside of his car.
My name was you.
He follows your orders. He's like, you ask for his ID. He's like, oh, okay, I'll get my ID. He reaches for his ID, and then you shoot at him. That's what the cops do all the time.
No, Prime, you're doing...
they're fucking cowards.
Something you need to consider is that, but like, it's not just that police
like that are fucking cowards. And they shouldn't be on the fucking force.
See, the job of being a cop needs to be.
I think what you're guilty of when you speak like that is exactly the kind of rhetoric that people use against black and brown people in this country. Oh well, hey, black and brown people could commit all these violent crimes. So God,
it's not at all because that would be genetic.
It is.
Last username also.
That is a cultural problem. That black culture is fucking gangs and murdering people, right? So what Prime is telling us here is that he thinks apparently that cop culture is being a coward and shooting people for pulling out their wallet, right? Given that we have millions of, like I think hundreds of millions of interactions between police and citizens in this country every fucking year, and lots of those are very tense, lots of those are in dangerous situations, right? And you still have such a small amount of people that are getting shot when they're unarmed, where there's a question
isn't all unarmed isn't the standard.
Please stop. Getting shot is like when they're unarmed or or when there's some question as to whether or not it's justified, that's like that very, very small minority of cases where force is used. In the vast majority of cases where force is used, it's totally justified, and there's no question as to whether or not it's justified. Right. So,
But the-
to throw this blanket like condemnation about police in the United States because
Fine.
a tiny
Hashtag
minority
not
of
all
these interactions
cops.
is
Hashtag
like
not
is
all
so sick.
cops. If it makes you feel better, right? Does that blanket
I
you're
think you're
looking
more
for?
productive in the
Okay.
conversation when you're honest
Look,
about what's happening. When you
But
don't
like,
I
I
gotta
haven't
hear
said
from
anything.
Ryan.
Hold on.
What the
Wait,
fuck
wait,
is
wait.
I haven't said
We
anything
gotta
in a
hear
minute. I
from
haven't
last
said anything in a
minute.
minute.
He was gonna say something. He was
I-
like in the middle of trying to
It's
say
gonna be
something.
I
good.
haven't said anything in like 10 minutes. Hold on. I think that like
All three of
we're
you guys
being
say
we're
something
being
now.
really dishonest whenever we all like. It's not just like, oh, cops shooting unarmed people. Like we focus on this like little niche situation, and we never deal with the entire concept of like police violence. The concept that like what police do isn't always the guy that got shot, and the wrongful situations aren't always just the ones that are recorded like that are reported on. Like police officers do see themselves as like, why do you think they call themselves the thin blue line? Because they think that either it's them, and then it's against the criminals, the bad guys in the bad neighborhoods who do the bad things. And maybe sometimes people do commit crimes, but that like we get, because we consider these people bad people, we think it gives us a justification to treat them physically however we want in society. Like another example I put in chat was Alton Sterling was the guy who like he ended up being shot by police, and it's not even about him being shot. But if you look at how the interaction got to how it got there, how we got to this situation, it's not about the end of the situation. It's about the like freaking tackling him, slamming his head into the car, pulling out their tasers, handcuffing them, throwing them. Like they created this situation that didn't have to happen because they didn't see him as a freaking human worthy of respect.
Okay. Last year's name. Since you didn't get to finish. Anyone else just awake and wiggle?
Okay, so in any kind of justice system or whatever you want to imagine, whatever kind of society you imagine, the job of being a police officer has to be safe. And when I say safe, I mean it has to be safe enough. It has to be so safe that you can do it every day for like 300 days a year or whatever for like 20 or 30 years, and you can be pretty sure that even over those thousands and thousands and thousands of days, you are probably not going to die. And for it to be that safe, the chance of you dying in any one specific situations in which you will have like several of in every day, you'll have like 100,000 of those situations of your career. Each of those situations has to be really incredibly safe. And that's why I think it seems like police are sometimes like they're being way too excessive in force and way too paranoid and cautious, because the level of safety, the threshold for safety has to be really, really high for them. So I think that in the effort to make policing less dangerous to the public, to civilians, where we can make progress is not going to be in making the job of police more dangerous. Rather, it's going to, or making them less able to protect themselves. Rather, it's going to be in police getting themselves into situations that are dangerous. Less kicking down doors and like no-knock raids, and less situations that escalate things and get themselves into situations where they're really dangerous, and therefore they have to use force to counter that and keep their jobs safe enough that they can survive the whole careers, right? That's where you want to look to make progress, not in saying police just have to take the risk that every single encounter could be dangerous because they have to trust everyone they meet. They can't trust people that much. They have to be really, really, really careful in all those situations.
Careful.
You understand what I mean?
Execute, though. Yeah.
Sometimes it does. Sometimes it does.
Sometimes when it's actually warranted, though, right? But if
it's going to be different for a police officer than it's going to be for you, an average person encountering, because you encountered that situation once or twice in your life.
I'm asking.
They encounter that situation 100,000 times. They have to be more careful, right?
I hear you. But I'm asking what you think should be the case. So
I think that police are probably, on average, as safe.
Let me ask you. Let me give
as
you
they need to
here.
be.
So if a person pulls out a wallet, right? A police officer thinks it's a gun, like it's dark, right? I'm giving you an actual real life situation. It's dark, and they pull out a wallet, and they shoot them. Should there be consequences for not getting it right? It's like that person.
There should be consequences for not getting it right, whatever the rules are. But the rules for that, imagine you stop thousands and thousands of people over and over and over again. That situation over and over again, every time they pull their wallet out, it only takes one of those for that wallet to be a gun, and it's over. That's it.
Yeah, but that's your
And
risk.
there's so much footage online of officers ringing on a doorbell and having guns fired at them, right? There's so much footage online of just normal any interaction that you would think is completely normal, and they're just because they have the job that they do. Why are you making these gestures?
Like I agree, Prime. I agree that it's unacceptable for the police to put the public in danger in order to keep themselves safe. I agree with that. The solution, though, is not to just expect the police to put up with more danger. They can't. I don't think we have to find ways to keep the police, to put the police in no more danger than they are now.
If we're giving them the monopoly of force, if we're giving them all these abilities, right? Then their responsibility should meet that, right? Then you have to be right. It does, like, your excuses mean nothing because you've killed an innocent person, right? Like, after that, I actually don't care. I actually don't give a shit, right? Like, you have that power. You have the ability. You have that training, right? I always talk about their fucking training all the goddamn time. If you can't exercise that properly,
but it's not, like, there's no rule that says you're allowed to kill innocent people. The rule is going to be, and what...
There are consequences for these people.
No, there really aren't.
Yes, there are.
There are.
Prime, holy fuck.
Hold on.
Yes, there are.
Wait. I think this is really interesting. I think this is really interesting because the reason why this is interesting is because initially Prime and Last Username seemed like they were relatively on the same page, but now they've got a fundamental difference. I would love to see that unfold a little bit more. That's very interesting.
So what do you want? What exactly do you want the rule to be, Prime?
When we talk about there being the consequence being like, oh, like if you're shot and enough people catch it on camera, then those few cases go to jail. I'm saying that every guy that got his head slammed going into a cop car doesn't face consequence for it, and that's the majority of these situations.
Bam, yeah. So then let's ask Last Username. Let's ask Last Username's question. Let's ask Last Username's question. What was the question, Last Username?
The question to Prime is, what exactly should the rule be? How should the rule be different than it is now to stop that from happening? Just shooting the guy just going for his wallet.
If you were wrong. Well,
what is wrong?
I guess it would depend on the exact situation. But if you were wrong and you executed the guy, at the very least, you should lose your ability to be a cop permanently.
But how do you know how do you decide if they're wrong? And that's the question.
Because
right?
Yeah, because
it can't just be because the guy's dead. Because sometimes it's justified, right?
Because the situation you gave me, I'm assuming what you mean is that they are not justified. Because why would you execute someone who has a wallet in their hand and not a gun?
Let's say the guy has the police says put your hand on the wheel or something, and the guy doesn't do it, and the guy reaches for the wallet or something. The cop then has to decide, okay, I told the guy to put his hand on the wheel. He's not doing that. He's reaching for something. If he's reaching for a gun, I'm not going to have any chance to defend myself if I wait to see the gun. Not necessarily.
Yes, he will.
Nope.
You have the advantage in that
That's
situation.
not a lot of time.
Actually, they do, right?
It's not a lot of time, Prime.
You already have... Cops
You're going to wait for his hand to come up. His hand could just come up and shoot you within half a second of it.
So the cops walk into every situation with their hands on their weapons, right? If they're nervous, it's always on their weapons, right? You can confirm if there was a gun. You can do that. You can take a beat because it's worth someone's life. It's worth their life.
But if that guy's going for a gun and he wants to shoot the cop isn't the time between the cop seeing the gun and him getting shot by the gun is going to be basically zero. Not nearly enough time to
basically zero.
Yes, come on, be reasonable. Prime. That's ridiculous.
Hey, right? Prime. If you're ready to draw already, you have your hand on your gun they do all the time. No, it's not basically, and it doesn't even matter any which way because the cops if you're not up to it, that's great. do something fucking else.
But
That's fine.
Prime, what I'm
Do
saying is the
something else.
solution to
Don't
that
give a shit.
cannot simply
Shouldn't be on
be
the fucking
just
force.
blame cops if someone gets shot and they weren't going for a gun. It has to be you have to give cops, you have to come up with a better solution to that, a solution that doesn't put the cops in danger. Like have some system
cops
for.
Are in danger. This is a dangerous job, just like soldiering.
But it can't be. If it's too dangerous, if it's so dangerous that you can't survive a career as a cop, you're going to die before you retire, then no one will be a cop, right? It has to.
Yes, you're gonna have turnover like there's no tomorrow. We're gonna see exactly what happened.
Absolutely.
That's not. That won't work, Prime.
Absolutely.
Prime, would you take a job where you definitely know you will probably die before you retire?
The military has higher standards than this.
It is. That's what you're saying.
It's not the exact same thing.
No, it's not the exact same
thing. Yes, exactly. We absolutely do. We have way higher standards for this. Positive ID is everything. Listen, I understand this, and this is why I'm an. Prime, please don't shake your head right now because everything I'm about to say.
Do not tell me what to do. Stop that right there. Don't ever.
Well,
don't ever fucking tell me what to do. Don't
cool,
tell me I have
to
to shake my head.
Kick me, my bad.
Do whatever the fuck I want.
Okay,
don't ever
bad.
fucking tell me what to do. Thank you.
My bad. I'm sorry that got you heated. But anyway, positive identification is everything. Prime, you've been lying since the beginning of this.
Don't fucking call me a liar.
I'm gonna call you a fucking liar.
Don't call me a fucking liar. Don't fucking do it. Don't do it. Watch your fucking mouth. Don't call me a liar. I ain't fucking lie about a fucking thing. Don't fucking call me a liar. Do it again. Do it again.
I feel like it's a debate. Are we just heated right now?
I swear to God, like I
haven't got
a word in edgewise, and now that I'm telling you that you were incorrect.
And you said the wrong fucking thing. Moving on. Go.
I am off mute. Yeah, thank God. Shockingly. Anyway, so positive identification is everything.
Shut up. I said you said the wrong fucking thing. Moving on. Let's go. Ashley.
Oh.
Wait.
Ashley.
I had just wanted to ask. Wait.
Oh my God. Stop doing. I'm going to have to toss this guy out. What the fuck are you doing? Oh, sorry. Wrong one. Go ahead.
I had just wanted to ask Wick, in your opinion, right, with you, trying what I was talking about with the right to pursue freedom, right? That's in Germany.
Yeah.
Excuse
me while I try to change gears from all this too.
Yeah.
So, give me a beat, but yes, please continue.
I just wanted to ask on your take on that, which is I'm not for assault being legalized for that or whatever. I'm just saying that, hey, if you run away from a cop, if you do a minor push or something like that, I don't think that should get you charged with anything significant. Because I understand that the incentive is there to then stay if you don't get charged, but in the moment the idea is that you might even pursue freedom without fully being able to make that judgment call.
Okay, so the problem I have with this is twofold. One is, as you already said, the incentive, and we recognize that when we have laws like this, we don't want people running away from the cops. In an ideal situation, we don't want people to resist arrest. We don't want that. That's going to lead to bad outcomes, generally speaking. The second problem I'd have is when you saying things like a minor push. What the fuck is a minor push? What the fuck is minor violence? How do we judge these things? And it's so vague to me. Maybe if there were clear guidelines,
that's why we have
that would be different.
We make guidelines.
I would say
I just don't like that. I do also want to kind of ask a question to Prime too on the other thing that's going on. So for Prime, if a cop is trying to deal with a hostage situation, okay, someone has a bunch of hostages, guns to their head basically, or whatever, the cops bust in, they shoot trying to take out the guy, but they hit one of the hostages instead. Is that something where they should be held accountable for?
Sorry, can you say it again, please?
Sure, certainly. So hostage situation, cops bust in, they're trying to shoot the bad guy, one of the guys misses, hits one of the hostages on accident. Is that a situation which they should be held accountable for?
No.
Yeah,
I guess
I would agree with you. So we can at least picture situations where mistakes are made, where the cops do get it wrong, but we are okay with that because we understand, because of the situation that they are in, that sometimes you just fucking make a mistake.
Getting it
That we
wrong
can.
and targeting the wrong person is two different things. Like saying I shot and missed
No, I get that.
is
I
one
get
thing,
that. I
but you're
get
saying
that.
that you put someone else's life at
But
risk.
I
That
just
you
want to.
didn't put there?
I just wanted to make sure that there was a difference there, because it didn't sound like it. But I'm glad we had the chance to clarify. And I agree with you that when we talk about these things, like someone dies, that almost does us a disservice, because the majority of the problem is the brutality that takes place where no one dies. Where, as you said, their head gets slammed against a cop door, when they are targeted, where we have these precincts across America, not every precinct, mind you, not every precinct is like this, but there are definitely problem precincts across America that have an adversarial relationship with the citizenry, and this has led to very bad things. And we need to fix that. I think there are some common sense ways to do that. Ending the war on drugs would fix a lot of these problems, a lot of this adversarial relationship, not in and of itself by itself, but it would go a long way towards that.
I don't know. I think that realistically, um, like it's really easy to say that like, oh, cops should do this, cops should do that, but like, um, no, or people should be better. But like the reality is, they did sign up for this job. Um, Last username, the description of the situation he described was basically freaking Philando Castile, and I believe that like humans aren't perfect. The cop might have said something. Maybe I was reacting. I already know you needed my wallet, so I reached for my wallet. Like if you shoot me when I'm reaching my wallet, like I'm sorry, you like that I am holding the cop responsible for, because you need to be sure before you put somebody's life in danger. And I know that puts the cop at a higher risk, but like again, the military is held to a higher standard than this. The military like doesn't get to like if you shoot the civilian, like there actually are consequences that they face. They have their own like judicial system.
To be clear, I'm not saying that the cops are always innocent if that happens. Like Philando Castillo, that did seem like kind of sketchy. I'm just saying that I can imagine situations in which a person could be shot even though they weren't going for a gun, if under the right circumstance, and the cop would not be liable. That is, I can see that's potentially could happen. And I think the solution to that is not to just say, well, no matter what, the cops have to make sure that doesn't happen. And if it happens, then they're just at fault. I think the solution there needs to be at some point to change the way that encounter happens, to have some other protocol or mechanism so that the cop is never put into a situation where they have to potentially make a split-second decision that could either save their life or it could kill an innocent person. I
know that protocol. That's not being a cop. That's a situation where you can like.
I think that cops are necessary,
and you can you can like remove all risk from your job.
I don't think that's an option to have no cops.
But I'm not saying it's no cops. I'm saying that you're saying that the standard should be that cops should be allowed to exist without taking on any risk. That's the job. That's the same job.
If we want people to be cops, we have to.
We don't tell firefighters that they don't have to deal with fire. They shouldn't have to deal with fire.
You cannot expect someone to take on a job that's going to kill them. No one's going to take that job. Even if you think that that's somehow ethical, it's just not going to work. No one's going to take the job.
Put your life at risk doesn't mean that you're.
There's plenty of people in Ukraine.
So you guys know how
There's
bad
plenty
the
of
child
people in
welfare
Ukraine taking their lives into their own hands with very little chance of success, but they're doing it. They're stepping up.
They have no choice. Their alternative is worse. But people in a society that's not being invaded by Russia, people are not going to choose that. They're going to choose a job where they don't die, like all the other jobs.
Okay, so you guys know how bad the child welfare system is, right? Like how overworked the social workers are in that system, how underpaid they are, how stretched thin they are. They have like so many cases that they can't, how it's like near impossible how they're keeping track of so many of them. I don't want there to be the risks of being a police officer to be so high that we have the same thing happening with that agency as well.
Doobie?
Yeah, so Prime, I've actually been looking this stuff up because I can't remember cases of a cop just shooting somebody for pulling out a wallet and there not being consequences, right? So you keep saying there aren't any consequences when this stuff happens. So is there like a specific case you're thinking about? Because there's like a really famous video of a guy he's at like a gas station. Cop tells him to get out of the car, and then he turns really quickly to grab his wallet, and he gets shot by the cop. Right?
Yeah.
That cop did go to jail, right? And he was kicked off the police force. The guy sued the police department. Obviously, the cop admitted that he fucked up, and he was sent to jail. Right? So like,
Yeah, I remember that. I was thinking of that case.
he went to
That's
jail.
one of the cases. That happens. But the thing is, that's an exception to the rule, and when it comes to use of force, right? The vast majority. The reason why people were on the edge of their seats for the George Floyd verdict, right, against the cop, right? I forget the guy's name. Fuck him. But the reason why people were some of the white America was on the edge. Black America was not. Black America has already gone through this, right? So Black America, right, looked at it as like, oh, well, we know what's going to happen. This guy's going to get off scot-free. We've seen this happen before. So it was a shock to us when he actually got convicted, right? These aren't the rules. These are the exceptions. Most of the time, they don't get charged. So, like, that's the problem right there.
Okay, but when you say most of the time they don't get charged, right? The implication there is that they did wrong in the first place. Typically, when these things happen, there's an investigation. The person gets a lawyer. They try to sue, all this kind of shit. And if the cop isn't charged, it's typically because they found that there isn't a good reason for it, right? In the vast majority of these cases, the cop is totally justified and it's found that the cop is justified. So you just said, hey, Black America wasn't on the edge of the seat. They said, oh, we've been through this before. I just told you the guy who got shot for pulling out his wallet, this person you've been using as an example, the cop did get charged. He did go to jail, right? So
Yeah,
where's the rule?
And
How is that an exception?
And
What about
I
Philando
already
Castile?
knew that. That was just an example of a cop. What did I say? The cop should be off the force. That cop should be off the force, right? And that's what happened in that particular situation. But that was publicized. The reason why we know it is because there's video of it. There's a video of that situation happening. There's video because it was so egregious, and the cop obviously didn't know how to shoot because he actually didn't hit the guy. He shot like a bunch of times. He actually missed all of them. It was amazing. And thank God that it was a poor shot, right? It was shitty. Should have been on the force, right? But most of the time, no, there isn't any consequences. Hashtag to price, right? There's no like these people, or they leave the force and they get hired immediately by another district, right? It just happens. These things happen.
So, because I don't, sorry if you guys can hear the dog barking in the background. So if we did find that cases like went down, right? So like, case of police assault went down, less cops are charged, less people are reporting this. Like, why wouldn't you just still say, hey, well, it's not being reported. Hey, it hasn't gone. We don't see it in trial because there's no video of it. It seems like you're creating a situation where no matter what the situation actually is, no matter what the reality actually is, you can still say, oh, well, shit's not getting reported. So, and we know that stuff's happening that doesn't get reported.
We named two situations that
We
were.
just made the assumption here that hey, most of the time it doesn't get charged. Most of the time it's not on video. Most of the time, like, we don't know about it.
I didn't say anything about reported, right? I said that we, meaning you, me, the nation knows about it because it happened to be on video and it happened to be viral, right? We know about those situations. There are other situations that are video that we don't actually pay attention to. There are other situations that are reported, and that you have the DA who's investigating this, who takes it in front of the grand jury and does a shit job. You talk to the grand jury afterwards, right? And they're like, I'm not hearing about shit. What are you talking about, right? Like, this evidence is not presented. The DA will literally tank the case. We've seen it before, right? That's one of the police reforms that have to happen, or law enforcement reforms that has to happen, is that the DAs who work with the cops all the time should not be in charge of prosecuting those cops because of their established relationships.
I totally agree. Like I'm not saying, I agree with you that the police probably need more liability than they have now. They probably get away with committing crimes that they should be charged with all the time now. But what I'm also saying is that even if you fixed that problem, you would not entirely solve the problem of the encounters between police and the public being too dangerous for one or the other. I think that's not going to entirely solve the problem. You also have to somehow make those interactions less dangerous through some combination of having less laws, making less things be illegal, so the cops and the public are just encounter each other less, and changing the ways in which the police actually interact with the public so that they're not putting themselves in extremely dangerous situations for unnecessary reasons, like situations where this guy was selling pot on the street, and he's at home, but he might run, so you need like 10 guys with fucking rifles and bulletproof vests to kick down his door in the middle of the night and throw grenades and tackle him. They have to be not so aggressive and be willing to say, okay, maybe this guy will run. Maybe we might not even get our man, but it's not worth creating this extremely dangerous situation like that just to guarantee that we get him.
I'm a Barbie girl in the Barbie world.
Another example with Ahmaud Arbery, the reason the McMichaels went 3 months without being charged after what I hope everyone agrees should have been a cut and dry situation was because the McMichael's a former police officer. Like, is it like, oh, he's a cop, he couldn't possibly do anything. And like I said, the only reason we heard about that wasn't because of public opinion. It was because the one of the guys involved was like proud enough to put it online, to post the video and like, oh, what a great job they did.
Yeah, I would say that that's the exception. You know, a former cop, a retired cop who has like friends still in the police force, that's the exception to the rule, right? And obviously that was like a clear cut case. But you're speaking as if like that's the case everywhere. Like DAs all over the country just tank the cases when it's a black person.
Amir Rice, I think Philando Castile, like it's one.
Okay,
and I know that
you can name hold on, you can name like a handful of them. Again, hundreds of millions of interactions with police officers every year in this country.
I agree. That's what I was going to say.
Tiny percentage.
But
you're speaking as if like police are just going around executing people.
Yeah, that's not the argument I'm making. That's what I'm saying. Let me finish. I'm saying that you said that we couldn't name any examples in real life. I'm saying that yes, we can absolutely. Well, you said that like we couldn't name any like cases because we were being conspiratorial and saying
that's not
that,
what I said either.
Wait, just let me finish, and then you can correct me what you didn't say. What I conferred what you said was that we were being conspiratorial and we were saying that the cases where it happens that they weren't being reported, so we couldn't prove it. I was just naming a few cases that that were public opinion, like there were public news that the wrong outcome fell. That doesn't mean that like obviously all of these cases, if there was 5 a day, that wouldn't necessarily justify that there was a systemic issue across the country. But it's not just about murders, it's about the way that black people deal with police on a day-to-day basis in this country, and maybe not just black people, but it's predominantly an issue involving black people. It's the police interactions that we can all speak to from our. Like everyone of us have like personal experience. Like this isn't something that we're just making up, and you're not going to be able to calculate it, but just by looking at deaths and just looking at how many the police agree to being like
I think you'll find that most people's interactions with the police, like when they have to have an interaction with them, are like negative experiences, right? So yeah, I don't think the average black experience is being chased down the street by a cop with a baton, right? So like. Again, I feel like you're massively overstating how much of an issue this is, and I feel like you're creating.
Well, why did you jump to that? Why did you jump to that hypothetical example? When did I say that most black people were chased down the street?
Because you said, "Oh, our experiences with police."
I've had experiences with police.
I know white people who've had experiences with police that were bad, right? So, like saying, "Hey, this is like the black experience, the black experience of police officers," as if it's not a common fucking thing for police to be assholes to people, right? As if it's not a common thing for no matter what your race is to have a bad interaction with a police officer who pulled you over for speeding, who's like questioning you and you feel uncomfortable, you feel like he's aggressive and is butting to your space or whatever the fuck. It's very common, right? Across all races. You're attempting to make this like a black issue.
I mean,
it's not even like a full argument. It's acknowledging reality. When what you're attempting to do is put yourself in the victim box, right? Because you're black, so you have special instances of like police interaction that are just totally outlandish, and we're not going to be able to understand because we're not black.
No, like, I'm not saying you can't understand, but you're saying this is overstated. I don't believe it's overstated. I believe if anything,
it's absolutely overstated. If Prem's on here like pretending they're execution squads, and you're acting like all black people have these experiences where they're getting like beaten by the police and shit like that, you're absolutely.
When did I say that everyone was beat by the police? Gremlin?
What do you mean when you say the black experiences that black people that we can all speak to with police? What do you mean by that?
I'm saying unlawful interactions. Police doing something that crosses the line.
You think the average black person has had some unlawful interaction? No, that's
absolutely.
You're overstating it.
I'm not.
Yes,
I'm not saying that doesn't mean that there's not exceptions to that. But I think the overwhelming majority of black people over their lifetime are going.
Why would you think that?
But because it
You
seems to
think
be
that
true.
all police are just racist? Like every single, even
No,
the black ones and the brown ones and the Asian ones are
no,
all just
it's not.
racist too?
It's not about them being racist. Again, I'm not making some weird straw man. I'm saying that I'm saying that police predominantly, like, there's only so many police, so they're going to go to areas of poverty because poverty is where crime is, and poverty is also where black people is. And black people do have, like, due to like systemic issues, like a different commit a different amount of crime. So police generally view black people as like a higher likelihood of being criminals, especially when they're from certain communities. So they're going to.
But the people who are victimized in those communities, and a lot of those communities are policed by black officers and brown officers because they
not
live in the fucking area, right?
that's
The
not
people that have been
necessary.
victimized there are also black and brown. So if that's your argument, why wouldn't they also assume that black and brown people are more likely to be the victims of crime because that's what they're interacting with?
I didn't say. I never said it wasn't. I'm not talking about the issue of the crime. I'm talking about the issue of the police. The crime is its own issue, but it's like you just tried to pivot to why don't we talk about black on black crime? That's not
No,
the
that's what
conversation
you
we're
did.
having. No, I'm saying that
You
I'm
brought up
talking
the
about the
crime rate in
police.
black communities. I didn't do that.
Yes, but I'm saying that I'm talking about the reason you asked why do I you tried to straw man me and say that I thought that police were like being explicitly racist. I'm saying why black people are more likely to have these situations is because of the
I think it's because
communities that
people like
police.
you fearmonger about the average black experiences that's made up.
What
What
did
do
I
you
fear
mean
my?
people like
About police
him?
execution
Wait,
squads,
whoa.
people
Can I
When
jump
did I
in
when did I
here?
say
execution squads that
execution
are just
squad?
going
When did I
around
say any
executing
of that?
people for pulling out their wallet and then not getting punished for
Show
it.
me where I said
I
any
think
of
it's
that.
absolutely fear
Or
mongering.
you can't address what I'm saying because you know I'm right. You had to jump to
No,
something really
I
prominent. It
agree.
didn't
I
come
agree that
close
there's
to
this
a word.
perception, but I'm telling you that it comes from people like you, people like Prime, who exaggerate the problem.
I,
People
when did
like
I,
About
him
police
and
execution
Prime. Why don't
squads
you just add
and
me
who
at that
are
point?
no, Wiggle, I
people like
love you.
Wiggle as
Okay,
well.
police execution squads are just going around executing people for pulling out their
Never
wallet and
said
not
any
getting
of that.
punished for it.
No one said
That's what
not one.
Prime said. Prime said, "Oh, they don't get punished when they shoot somebody for pulling out the wallet," and that guy
Didn't
did get
happen
punished.
in Orlando
So
Castile.
I feel like it creates this like false impression of what the interactions are actually like.
It's
And of course, when you're being beaten over the head with this false impression over and over again as a
What
black
makes you
person,
think it's false? What
just
makes you
like
think it's false?
just like I got as a brown guy growing up in East LA, you're gonna be afraid when you're interacting with police. You're gonna be more on edge,
What makes
right?
you
And
believe
the
it's
cops are
false?
gonna notice that you're on edge when you're talking to them, and maybe they'll treat you differently because you're on
He
edge
can't address
and you're
anything that
making
was
them
said.
feel on edge.
He can only make up
but
a
like
fake lie.
it's a little bit like it's more than it's actually much more than that. It's like focusing on something that doesn't happen that often, that is egregious. And then there's the things that everybody finds annoying about police officers. Even police officers probably find annoying about other police officers when they don't recognize them as police officers, which is like like the idea of like traffic cops being really annoying, tickets, smaller things, smaller infractions that you get, just dealing in everyday life, especially in a city. Imagine you get an open container ticket. Imagine how that feels for the rest of your life. How you view police officers if you're above a certain age and you're covering your beer or what have you, and you get an open container ticket, and now you have something on your record. You have to pay something. You have to show you're guilty. You have to say that you're guilty of something. Why? Just because you were drinking like a Corona or like a Bud Light in a container, walking down your favorite city in your everyday life. I think those are the things that affect the majority of people, and those are the things that affect our opinions on police the most. Not that the police officer will kill me, is that a police officer is an inconvenience. It's an extension of the tax man.
Yes, and again, this isn't just a racial problem. This is an everybody problem. Police do this to everybody. I don't know
There's
if
a
I've told this story
racialized element,
before.
but
Sure, but
we can
like
look
for
at what
example,
affects
the
everybody.
police came in and stole my mom's laptop. They stole it. They stole my mom's laptop. They just took it, and the
What
way
did
they
Hunter
got into
Biden
the
do on
house.
that laptop?
Yeah, civil
What did
forfeiture
your mom
sucks for
do with Hunter
everybody.
Biden?
Wick, civil forfeiture
Yeah, that's what I'm trying
sucks
to
for
say.
everybody.
That's what I'm trying to say. That I think that when we tackle these issues, there are racial elements to it, no doubt. But we can look and solve the problem from a non-racial lens, and I think that might be more effective.
No.
For
You
me,
don't think so? Why not?
I think there's clear problems there. They're not the same. It's just the idea of I don't want to lose like the white population in fighting the racial injustice and in policing. I can fight that fight with my black brothers. I can fight that fight with people of color. But I want white people to care about police injustice. So when I talk with these individuals, I'm going to speak about the things that affect all of us. I'm going to speak about the things that they care to talk about, the things that don't distance us. I'll talk about the idea that if you have a car, your situation with the police is instantly worse. If you're an individual that owns a vehicle, the rest of your life, you're gonna fear like police stops. You're gonna have this level of fear. Maybe it's not that you're gonna get shot. It's just that, hey, maybe I have bills to pay and I might get ticketed for something. I might have to speed. I might be a part of my everyday life. And now that I have to pay something for it, I have to deal with that. And so when I speak to those individuals, I'll talk about those injustices.
I'll answer Wick's question, then I'll go to half baked take. Um, uh, Wick, you asked me why not? Why can't we do this in a race blind way? Because
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
not, the problem isn't race blind. It's the problem. Look, you can say, and I absolutely believe. Look, for my poor white brothers and sisters, right? The police harass them. It's absolutely the case. I know it. I see it. We've seen them. We've seen the police kill them, right? And so you tell me that they come in and stole from your mother, right? Like, yeah, absolutely, 100% believe you. Yeah, that happened. But like, there are parts of this like what sorry, like Wiggle. I'm sorry, I keep doing that. I do apologize. Like Wiggle was saying, right? There are parts that we have in common, but the parts where we don't. Like, you can be a poor white guy, right? And the police in your area might know you're poor, might know how to harass this guy, and maybe he's a troublemaker, right? But look, that poor white guy can put on a fucking suit, right? Like, comb his hair. I go into a walk on Wall Street, right? And the police there won't have any idea, right? They'll treat him like everyone else.
You could be a police officer. You could be in
yeah,
a
you could be a police officer. They put a uniform on
situation
him.
where your annoyance is, wow, they didn't recognize I'm a police officer, and I'm going through a scenario where I'm being treated in a certain way by another police officer, and this is just doesn't feel right. And then what do you do is when you put on the uniform, you complain about it.
But when you're black, I can't take off my skin. So walking down Wall Street in that same suit, right? That doesn't mean that the police don't look at us the same. So like to say that we can solve it in a colorblind problem, you don't use those words, but like that's what you were moving towards.
I don't have any stats to back this up, but I would bet that the police are like vastly more prejudiced against people by the clothes that you wear than by the color of your skin. Like, a black person dressed in a suit on Wall Street probably going to be less likely for the police to be prejudiced against them than a white guy dressed in sort of like streety, gang. Like,
well, more like
if I could just kind of explain myself here,
precisely because you can control.
I'm not saying that there isn't a difference here. I'm not saying that there isn't racial elements to this. They're absolutely disgusting, absolutely horrendous, absolutely real. When we talk about effective rhetoric, when we talk about actually getting what we want, I think that the best strategy is to appeal to as wide an audience as possible, to appeal to all, like, because that's how we deal with things in an electoral system that we have, right? Like, we have to. It may not be just, it may not be fair, but I don't care if it's fair. If it works, let's do it.
I'm saying.
Yeah, what you want is different than what me, Prime, and Bam want. So we lower ourselves to what you want to get something.
Yeah, and that's
the
what we
only
do.
issue we ever do this with. We never do this with LGBT issues. We like, and that's not like a saying something bad about LGBT issues. They're important, but we never tell them like, hey, let's just talk about everybody. Like, this conversation only happens with black issues, and it's time and time again that like this is we always jump to the all lives matter BS. And I'm not trying to say that.
On that a little bit because the LGBT community has oftentimes left behind the trans community, right? Like, that's the thing that happens there. So but I hear what you're trying to say.
I'm not saying you're a bad person, Wick. I'm not like, I think you're actually trying to be useful. Like I think you're like, I'm not saying you're like coming from a bad place, but I see it every time we have these conversations.
Let's get to
also like, I mean, if you practice Islam, and then there's showcases in some way, you are discriminating in a way nobody cares about in America. So that's a lot worse.
Well, some discrimination is reasonable. I'm not saying that discrimination is reasonable, but some is reasonable.
Happy.
Oh, no. Everybody's making good points. I just wanted to stop back in and say it's all love, Prime. I had a long day. I had an 8-hour drive, so it's all love.
Yeah, I wasn't going to toss. You kept unmuting yourself in StreamYard. Everyone at home, you don't know this. But so we use StreamYard for video. This is what you're seeing here, right? And then we're in the Discord room for audio. and
realize.
kept unmuting himself in StreamYard.
Oh,
And
my
when you
bad.
do that, we'll sometimes hear
If
double.
that was the case, I am so sorry, and I
Yeah.
apologize, but I do want to follow up. But
Yeah, that's why I was going to take you off screen because you just Anyway,
Yeah. So, and one other thing that last username said, I'm sorry about that. Like he said that like, oh, it's probably closed. Like, I don't like when we deal with this hypothetical because we know like clothing is a part of culture too and a part of environment. So we
Sure.
can say who's more likely to be in those clothes in those environments. So it's like trying to abstract it doesn't really help people in everyday life because like that wearing a different type of clothes shouldn't subject you to worse treatment.
Yeah, but Prime was saying that you can't, that isn't about clothes. That even a black guy dressed up in a suit and walked down Wall Street, the police would still treat him really badly. I
I'm
don't
still
think that's
curious
true.
what
I was gonna
happens is different.
give on that
I just
issue.
don't know.
No, so I was gonna last username. I was actually going to give ground on that issue, saying that I think you're right to a certain extent. But the stats are look. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you what the stats that you were asking for. I have no idea.
I mean, just think about it. Like, do you really think the cops are going to treat, like, what's going to make the most difference? Changing your skin from black to white,
okay,
or going from like being in a bad neighborhood wearing thuggy clothes to Wall Street wearing a suit. That seems like that's going to make a much bigger difference.
I'm also going to add that
whatever you think that means, right?
Police in New York City are like used to seeing black people and Latino people.
I didn't realize I was
time.
muted this
They're
whole
just
time.
shitty. They're just shittier. Like police
Ernest
in New York
is like,
City.
why is no one listening?
Police in New York City, there's a shitload of them, and they're everywhere, and they're used to saying like Latino people, Asian people, black people of all types, because New York City's so dense, etc. In their everyday lives, they're just also used to the same anonymity that most people experience. In New York City, you could experience something like where someone walks up to you and does something that is illegal in order to give you a ticket, and then puts you in a position where you have to prove it. And now you're an individual where you're in a tourist city. Like, they don't expect you, they expect you to like what like, are you gonna come to court in New York City? You're there on a weekend. Are you gonna like fly in, go to court, or are you just going to pay the ticket? Are you going to dispute what the officer says, etc.? And they operate with that level of power. If they see someone doing an action, they operate with the understanding of this is something we can get away with, or what have you. I don't think that would be the same in other areas of the country.
So we've gone way over time. But just to respond to last username, I'm gonna leave the thug clothes alone. But there is cops stop African Americans who are in, for instance, nice cars, right? Like cars that are very expensive all the time. Right? You could say, well, oh, that guy probably, he's driving that car, so he's probably has more money. He's probably upper class. I'm not hassle that guy.
Yeah, I mean, an expensive car is different. Like,
why?
Because it's not hard to imagine a criminal having an expensive car. It is hard to imagine a criminal having an expensive suit walking down Wall Street.
What? No.
I don't know.
I'm saying,
I don't know. It's easy to imagine. Like, look.
Well, I mean, can imagine it, but it significantly reduces the odds that they're
the fear,
criminal,
though.
right?
Think about the fear, though. If you're in a car, that's one of the places that you should feel the most safe. And when do you feel unsafe? You feel safe. You'll feel unsafe when you see a police officer on the same road as you. Why? Like, why?
Everybody dies in cars. That's weird.
Yeah, but it's yours. That's where people keep their illegal items. That's where people hide their stuff from the family or what have you. It's theirs. It's one of the few things in life that they feel is theirs. And like, you feel free when you're in your own vehicle. And then
they made a song about it.
When do you feel some level of fear? Is you're driving the same route you always drive, and now there's a cop on the same road as you, and now everything changes. All the schematics change. Everything changes. And they may not even be there for you. They're driving the same road for a completely different reason.
So we sorry, you didn't get the chance to speak Stardust because you're a pro streamer and I didn't realize you were muted. So if you have something to add, go ahead. But I don't want to take too much time for people.
I was just gonna say that when we're talking about like these demographics and you're comparing them, like generally when you're looking at like, let's say black versus white, you would want to look at like people within like a similar socioeconomic situation, people who live in similar neighborhoods at least, right? When you're looking at statistics like this. So, yeah.
So I also didn't toss them. I didn't do it that time either. So anyway, let's uh wrap this up. We're going to continue on after this for our open walk on panel. We have two apparently super spicy topics that people want to discuss, so we could discuss either of them or something else in the open panel. So stick around for that. It'd be great. We do this all the time. If you, conversation sometimes gets super fucking heated. Then hit that follow button. You haven't done so yet. Hit that follow button. Make sure on so you know I'm going live. We do this 7 nights a week. 7 nights a week. We are here, right? Exclamation point social and track to keep track of what we're doing. I'm on Twitter. I post what we're doing on Twitter. We're doing a thing, a debate tournament type thing. $1,200 on the line, right? If you didn't like that, well, probably check that thing out. Especially if we start rooting for that again, might be a chance for you to be a part of that prize. You should probably jump on Twitter. Discords will have everything, right, including open walk on panel. Heart and soul of the community, be a part of the Discord. We'd love to have you there. YouTube is where you find the bots. If you missed anything, right, and there was a lot, missed a lot. If you missed anything here, check out our YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, and consider becoming a YouTube member by hitting that join button, join the channel that way. Okay, I'm going to give an outro to all these amazing individuals. I guess start with Half Baked Takes. I didn't toss them. But thank you, Half Baked Takes, for being here. We'll start with Bam. Bam, thank you for being around and being a part of all this. This is a fun conversation, buddy. And you weren't the focus of my ire. Again, this is weird for us.
It is. Yeah, no, like really, really good topics. Good job, Stardust. Well, that sounded patronizing. It's like I'm sorry, like they were actually like it was a lot of fun, but also not fun. Like it was like pretty heated for a minute. Like not the great, kind of heated, but no, I'm here for it. This is what I do. Follow me, Black American Made. You all should be a little bit smarter from being in my presence. Thanks.
Wick, right? Who I'm always so happy to have. Seriously, like one reliable like we have, and I disagree often, like I did today, but like I love having him around. So I'm grateful for you, Wick. Honestly,
Well,
Wick.
I'm glad to be here, and
Mm.
I'm grateful, even when we disagree. Honestly, you disagreeing with me helps me be a better person. It helps me sharpen my rhetoric, helps me sharpen my opinions, and sometimes you change my mind, Prime. It happens. I take what you say and what others say. I think about it. I'm like, oh damn, they're actually right. Can't. It's like a fucking superpower I feel on the internet to change your mind, but it's something that happens. So yeah. If you liked my takes, or even if you didn't like my takes, and you want to talk to me, come see me at twitch.tv/death of certainty, all one word. I stream Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Tomorrow I have my open call-in show where you can call in and get it off your chest with my lovely co-host Kaylee Marie, and we take people's calls. We don't solve your problems, but we listen to you. And it's always a fun time. It's always good. Whether it be serious or lighthearted, we'll take all callers. So thank you again for having me. I'd love to be on more, obviously. And yeah, that's me. Thanks.
If you want to place the bitch on the internet, go to Death Attorney's channel. Thanks so much, buddy. All right, next we got my man Wiggle. Actually, wait a minute, what am I doing? You're last. I'm sorry, I apologize. All right, get in the back of the fucking line. Ashley, thank you for Ashley, thank you for coming through and sharing your perspective. Much appreciated as always. Like I'm not sure if this is the first time I've had you on the Reverie, but I definitely don't want to make this the last time. So shout out to you.
I think I've been on here before, but
Mm.
I think I'm. You have different names for your panels, and I sometimes have trouble keeping track. But I was on for the religion one. But I appreciate you having me on, and I appreciate you inviting me. I always love being on here. I always love chilling. I hope I bring a unique take to some of these things. Um, am I boring you, Doobie?
Always.
Okay, good to know. Anyway, yeah, I am Lex of Legend in the chat. I do Black Desert, and I go around murdering people, and I talk trans issues. Yeah, that's what I do.
Thank you so much. All right, next we have last username. Last username. Thank you. For being around, giving your takes. Right. Last username. also a person that I feel like he spends his time with us, right? Like he's a smart guy. He's got things going on with his life. He's not like a regular internet degenerate like me and Stardust. No, he's got things going on. It's extra special when he takes time out of his day to be here with us. Thank you, Les Houston.
I'm a professional internet degenerate by day. That's the difference. So, sum up this discussion. I think I hear a lot of when we're arguing about the police. I find a lot of the most common arguments seem to have a lot of kind of anger and sort of vindictiveness underlying them, and end up being kind of unreasonable, suggesting things that aren't really feasible and really come from just I want to screw over one side or the other. And I think I kind of don't blame people for doing that, because I think they feel like at some level there isn't any real practical solution to it. They feel like, well, this is a really tough problem, and that's frustrating. And when you're frustrated, you tend to like, well, fuck it, I'll just suggest this unreasonable thing out of frustration. But the thing is, there actually there's far more potential for solutions to this than I think people realize. I do a lot of thinking about this. The stuff I talk about on my channel is all about radical ways of reimagining justice system and how it could work. And I think there's a lot more options that people don't consider, and things that could drastically improve the safety of law enforcement for police and for the public, and improve it in all sorts of other ways. And it would improve it if you think the police are racist. It'll improve that. If you don't think they're racist, it'll still improve it for everyone, whether they are or not. You could see major improvements. So check out my channel, and if you want to hear me talk about those specific solutions, last_username. And good to be here as always. Good talking with you guys. It's a very good chat today.
Thanks so much. All right. Next we have our Dark Lord and Savior, Doobie. Doobie. Thank you for coming through. Again, I disagreed with you a bunch too, but it's always fun when I get to do that.
Yeah, Prime, you're wrong all the time. So this isn't like a new thing. I'm a Barbie girl. For those of you who missed it earlier, long story short, a couple months ago, I did slander someone named Queen Alexa. With like some groomer accusations. It wasn't true. I thought it was true at the time. Turns out it wasn't true at all. I was wrong. I fucked up. Please join her Discord server. You can join mine if you want to, but I really just to show some support, and also make up for my massive fuck up. If you could join her server, that'd be cool. Okay, thank you.
Let's put the link in the chat. Everyone, take a look at it. All right. We have Stardust. Seriously, thank you for the good topics. Turned out to a really good discussion. So shout out to Stardust for and for kindly joining us.
Yeah, well, I didn't really do that much. I just suggested, victim blaming, and then, and then Prime made it into a question, and then the second thing I did was like, punching cops, and then, yeah, he made it into a second question. So, I didn't really do that much. But anyways, hi everybody, I'm Stardust. You can find me twitch.tv/Stardust. It's spelled exactly how it sounds. And I'm here 7 nights a week as well, because I have no life, and I've decided to torture myself by spending at least 8 hours a day in complete darkness talking to myself. So if you like to watch somebody cover politics and purposely troll people and throw people off, and sometimes debate people and yell at them, come check me out. Thanks
so much. All right, and last we have my man Wiggle. Thanks for coming through and giving your very own perspective on all these things, right? You got a clear voice. I don't think not everyone has, right? So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a nice way of saying nobody else has. Thank you very much. I really appreciated being on this panel. I mean, it was, normally there's like a question that I like, and then the other one that's like, the other one. Stardust, thank you. These questions, both of them were really easy. I didn't have to prepare much, and they were enjoyable to talk about. It's not usually that way. Also, interesting person. I didn't like talking to you at first, but then, you've shown time and time again, you're a person that, if I disagree with you on something, you listen to what I say. and then respond. A lot of times when I talk to someone, they just repeat the same thing. You don't. Wick, always enjoyable to argue with you. So obstinate, but it's because you're obstinate that there's like a respect there. It's because like I know that you don't shift your opinions. Like you have the conviction, and I don't like your opinions. So it makes it great to argue with you a lot. Bam, his camera's off, but honestly, Bam, he's just there's something about him. It's like when he's on a panel, you want to hear what kind of bullshit he'll say because it's gonna be bullshit, but it's gonna be fun to parse out through the bullshit. And like he's very enjoyable. He's an entertaining character. Ashley, like this is the first time I was on a panel with you. Honestly, you brought it really hard on the first one. I was definitely rough because I don't agree with what you were saying, but you're a really enjoyable panelist there. And then you started like your opening statement on the second topic. I felt you were strawmanned a lot. You didn't say a lot what people were saying. I do think like what Germany did based on what you said is pretty based. Last username. I mean, it's always a pleasure. You're one of the few people where I feel guilty for cutting you off. When you said, "Hey, Wiggle, it was my chance to speak," I didn't show it, but I felt bad. I
I
because
forgive you.
you're like it's the mic. It's always been the mic and the voice that gives you this like daddy effect. Where I feel like I've like fuck. I disappointed my dad. It's like that kind of thing. And then Doobie, I mean, honestly, I still don't know whether you're here all the time. Like I have a sneaking suspicion you like watch Netflix or go do something and come back once in a while and you're like, oh fuck, like they're expecting me to say something crazy. Like I still don't know if you're here all the time or whether you just
Hold on,
keep
to
the
be clear,
volume up.
I am here, but I'm gooning like 75% of the time we're on these panels.
Oh God.
Explains.
Oh,
If you don't know what
why?
that
Why
is,
would you tell
look
us?
it up, okay?
But,
I'm just, I've got needs. Fuck you.
half baked takes. He was here for a while. Like I've never seen him that angry about something, and it was good. Like I like that. I like it. It's always funny for me when conservatives get really mad about something and get ignored because I'm like, I I enjoy anger, and I don't get that from liberals. And I like people being passionate about their politics. And most of the time, liberals just do that Sam Cedar bullshit of just going, I don't care. Like I don't really care. Is it really that big of a deal? Is it? And like, conservatives don't really do that. It's always a big deal and it's enjoyable. Prime, you were here. I mean, that's something, right? And like I reiterate my original stance, which is as long as Prime exists, profiting every single time there is black on black violence or police violence, or I'm going to speak about what to do in those situations. And anytime, as long as Prime exists profiting off of sexual assault cases so he can make his conversation topics about consent week after week after week, I will tell women to be careful because there's primes out there. There's primes out there. Yeah, that's why you should be afraid. Because there's guys like here who DM and profit off of sexual assault. All right. Thank you.
Wow. All right, add all the other ones up together, right? Still don't equal Wiggles. Sure. Okay, all right. Thank you so much for that, and for the accusations. All right, I appreciate all of you, whether you're on screen or not. I appreciate all of you. We are going to continue on to our open welcome panel right after this. Stick around, join us. I'm sure I'll be heated as well. Anyone here can join us, but if not, that's okay. Thanks for spending your time, your energy, your knowledge, and your passion with my community. I know they appreciate it just as much as I do. Thank you so much. And thank you, Doobie, for the 10 subs. Thank you so much. Shout out to Doobie. All right. Bye.
Nice. That was a good one. I really enjoyed that. Other people seem to enjoy it too. Everyone on the panel was reasonable to talk to, which is usually not the case. Usually there's at least a few people just sort of trying to steer that train, steer it off the tracks. Can't steer a train, but you know what I mean. That's pretty good. I like the topics. I like prime panels these days. They're going good. Comes up with good topics these days. I think he's figured out. Picks sort of philosophical topics, right? Things that pick things that require too much research, and you just get a bunch of idiots talking about stuff that they don't know about because they didn't do the research. but you pick these kind of like philosophical topics, then you get more interesting discussion because people don't have to pretend to know something they don't know. You just sort of give their opinion on something that everybody understands, right? So I love to keep going with this audience, but I gotta go to bed. I gotta get up for work in the morning. So thank you, everyone, for watching. Hope you liked that. And I'm gonna send you guys over to Prime so you guys can continue listening to that if you want. If you're new here, go ahead and hit that follow button, and I will tell you all about polycentric law, something we talk about on this channel a lot. It's like a legal system, a market legal system that does not have a state monopoly on it. All sorts of advantages. Sounds crazy, I know, but it's less crazy than you think and more well thought out than you might think, and could solve a lot of the problems we were talking tonight, or at least improve them significantly. Love to get into it now, but a little too late. So, good night, everyone. Stay free.
This, right? Like that, right? Keeping up a lot. Look, this channel is always the damsel in distress.